Counselors, Counselor Jordan, at-large, Counselor Ocasio, Ward 2, Counselor Sullivan, at-large, Counselor Devine, at-large, and Counselor Cocaine Givner is supposed to be on Zoom, but I don't, oh, there she is. See, this is why I can't do that because of my glasses. And she is on Zoom, and that's the Ward 4 counselor. So I at least take up a motion to accept the minutes of December 13th and January 17th.
Friendly reminder to do
Oh,
this one
thank you.
first.
And also, I'd like a motion to take a roll call vote that, for the purposes of this meeting, would be applicable to all motions to
She
remove
is on Zoom, and that's the Ward 4 counselor.
an item
So-
from the table, place items on the table, package items, or suspend the rules unless there is an objection.
I second the motion.
Do I have to do a roll call on that one?
Yeah.
And a roll call is Counselor Sullivan,
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes, Counselor Jordan,
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio, and Counselor Givner.
She's on mute.
Are you on mute, Counselor Givner?
Let's go close it.
Counselor Givner?
And a roll call is Counselor Sullivan,
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes, Counselor Jordan,
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio, and
Yes.
Counselor
Yes.
Okay. All right, do we have,
Givner.
I'm definitely here.
okay,
Hello?
yes, we can hear you, can you hear?
Givner. And roll call is Counselor Sullivan, yes, Counselor Devine, yes, Counselor
Okay.
Jordan, Counselor
She's getting feedback or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Rory, excuse me, are your people here that are gonna?
All right,
Okay,
do we
all
have
right.
Givner?
Okay, and I would like to entertain a motion to take item 13 out of order.
Second.
And roll call, Devine, yes, Givner? Oh, wait, Jordan?
Yes.
Ocasio?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay. And Rory, would you prefer to come in, or? And Kelly's
Remote too.
remote. Is there somebody else that's,
Maureen Ross O'Connell and Steve Corbin are two brokers.
I don't see them, do you? There's Stephen Corbin.
I don't know if there's some technical difficulties with folks with the Zoom.
No, I think they have to unmute
Okay.
themselves.
Excuse me, but Stephen, if you could unmute yourself?
Other than that, I think it would only be Jeff that could unmute them.
Jeff, are you able to unmute somebody?
No, I don't have control over how somebody else is muted.
All right.
Well, we'll just begin with. whoever-
Okay, well, Kelly Curran and Rory are here, so if you want to begin, and maybe Stephen will
Sure, I'll come
unmute
in.
himself.
And is Attorney Mantaleski here as well, virtually?
Yes.
Great.
Where do you see her?
She heard that. I think you got too many on the screen.
Oh,
that
okay.
You can't see them, but I saw her. name
Okay,
earlier.
all right.
She is there.
Okay. And we'd also, while we're waiting to begin this, to welcome Counselor Bartley, Ward 3, and Counselor McGrath Smith, Ward 7. Okay. All right, Rory, why don't you begin, or Kelly, whoever wants to. Jane is also on Zoom, as is Stephen, but they need to unmute.
Well, we're waiting for that, just to kind of keep the meeting moving along.
Okay.
And explain what brings us here this evening. This is just one more step in a conversation that's been going on for the better course of 18 months, I believe, with the possibility of the city moving into a self-funded health insurance model away from a fully funded health insurance model that we currently operate under. Now, in order to do that, we would need to form a trust, a health and dental trust, in order to make that work. Now, we haven't made a firm decision. The mayor, who was just here, is obviously a big part of that decision-making process, along with the representatives of the Section 19 committee that represent all the collective bargaining units in the city. About 18 months ago, our brokers approached representatives in the city and had done a thorough analysis, and it was showing that it actually may have a cost benefit for us to move into a self-insured model based on our previous year's experience rates. Fast forward, we decided we wanted to have an independent analysis done as well. We were looking at the GIC. I know this is something that Councilor Jourdain has talked quite a bit about. He was part of that process, reviewing some of this, and we secured a grant through the mayor and through Kelly Curran to conduct that independent analysis. That was Cook and Company. They presented to the ordinance committee in December. Their analysis came up with essentially the same recommendation. They weren't saying go this way, but they were saying based on everything that they had reviewed that there actually would be a potential benefit for the city to move into a self-insured model. GIC was not actually as appealing as we thought it may be, and we had looked at some other alternative plans as well. So we started that conversation with the Section 19, and we started that conversation with our brokers and having that conversation internally. One of the very first things that would need to happen if, and I have to emphasize, if we were to move in that direction, would be the formation of a trust. And so that's what brings us here this evening. In order to form the trust, the city council would have to adopt the state law that's in front of you right now. And that's just one of many steps that would have to take place in order for us to move into a self-insured model with a start date of July 1st of 2024. So we'd be looking at something for the fiscal 25 year potentially. That is a doable timeline if we were to head in that direction. And I know that our two brokers that work very closely with the city have a lot of experience with other municipalities that have moved into this direction. It's certainly something worth exploring, but again, I just want to emphasize that no final decision's been made, but in order for us to take the next steps, we would need the council to adopt this state law, which just opens up the door and would allow for us to move forward on that timeline. If we were not able to secure that, what would happen is we would have to stay with a fully insured renewal starting with July 1st of 24 for the fiscal 25. And we could potentially continue this conversation, but we were hoping to at least have this conversation at Finance this evening to take those next steps and continue this process.
Just a quick question. Could you explain to perhaps newer counselors or people at home the Section 19 committee, what specifically that is?
Absolutely. So we in Holyoke call it Section 19. It's actually Section 19 of Chapter 32B, I believe is the actual chapter. That is the, other communities call it the PEC, the Public Employee Committee. And what it means is that all of the collective bargaining units in the city come together and they bargain as one unit when it relates to benefits and health insurance. So whereas we have a number of different contracts, you can think of all the contracts that come in front of this committee, police supervisors, patrolmen, fire deputy chiefs, firemen, so on and so forth. They all come together. So that makes up the water department it makes up the gas and electric, and it makes up the school department and the city of Holyoke proper. Their votes are weighted based on the size of their membership. So the teachers, as you can imagine, probably the largest pool in the city, have one of the largest weights. It's not over 50%, but it's pretty close. It's in the high 40s, all the way down to the professional supervisors union, which I know was discussed very recently at a meeting. That's 0.15% of the total weight because of the number of members that are in there. So the reason the city adopted that, now that was going back at
Years
least
and years
20,
ago, yeah.
20 plus years when the city adopted that, was prior to that, you would have had to have negotiated the benefits, the plan design, the actual cost of health insurance with each separate bargaining unit. So this was an opportunity to bring everybody together. And I would say that, it's probably one of the best working relationships between quote unquote management and labor within the city. We work collectively together to come up with a good plan, both for the employees and all of us who use that health insurance, as well as what the costs are for the city.
And only because I forgot to do it, I should read the order.
Sure.
Okay. It's an order filed by Councilor Murphy Ramboletti. Order that the City of Holyoke establish a health insurance trust agreement pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 23B, Section 3A, Mass General Laws, Chapter 32B, Section 3A, permits a municipality to establish a health insurance trust to organize, arrange, or provide for the delivery of payment of health care coverage or services. The establishment of the trust by the city to administer health care payments will create a significant savings to the FY25 proposed budget. Okay, so does this council have any questions? Mike? Counselor Sullivan?
Thank you. Rory, could you quantify what significant savings entails?
Yeah, so I would say that line is a little misleading, and I think that the way it was originally crafted, it should have read within the trust, if we were to form a trust, because what I would encourage folks, as we have this conversation about the trust, I would encourage folks to think of our retirement system. That's probably the best way to look at it. It's not apples to apples, but it's a good way to look at it. So the savings themselves, and I would encourage folks, I believe Jeffrey sent it around to folks. If not, we'll make sure you have that information. The Cook and Company report, the analysis of those years, basically what it showed was if we had been in a self-insured model versus a fully insured model, the total costs incurred by the city, both the employer and the employees, would have been significantly less than what we had actually paid out. So what that means is our insurance carriers were making a pretty tidy profit. And in this scenario, any of those profits, or not profits, but those savings would live within the trust, which would help ensure that those years that are really good, great. Those years where we have seen double-digit increases in premium costs, we would have enough money to potentially tamp that down. And that's something that we'd have to talk about with Section 19. We'd be talking about, but back to the example of the retirement board, the trust itself would do all of that work. The trustees would do the calculations similar to what the retirement board currently does, along with PARAC, and then they essentially invoice all of the different units of the city, so the water department, gas, electric, all the ones I mentioned. This is how much you owe based on the number of retirees you have. It would be very similar to that. So I don't want anybody to walk away from tonight or any conversation thinking that by adopting this, we're going to see a huge savings in the general operating fund budget for fiscal '25. It's a savings of the cost of health insurance, which would live within the trust.
You did a nice, totally lost me.
Okay.
All right. Somewhere along the line here, there's, the way I see this, there's got to be a savings in how much our overall cost out of the general fund is for the total insurance package for the city. So if there's a significant savings in that, did they say, are we going to be able to do it for $1 million cheaper a year, or $500,000 cheaper, or $10 million cheaper a year?
Oh, it wouldn't be 10.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I understand. So it would be dependent on the performance year after year, but what the analysis shows is that the total costs of health insurance that we've spent over the past 4 or 5 fiscal years, if we had been in a self-insured model, would have been considerably lower.
How much lower?
I don't have the report right in front of me right now. I was actually expecting the brokers to be able to touch a little bit more on this, so I do apologize. I'm the one here in person. I would say it was within the 7 figures over the course of that year, those years. And that is information that's been provided to the council previously, and we'll make sure that you have that information.
All right.
Rory,
So-
Steve is on the line.
Yeah, Kelly, I was just going to bring that up. Rory, this is Steve Corbett. I'm on the line if you have any particular questions that you need to ask.
Yeah, Steve, so the question that just came up, you might have the report right in front of you. Based on the analysis, again, keeping in mind this it's not a direct line.
Yep.
What was the analysis that showed a cost savings within the cost of health insurance? Could you touch on that, please, Steve?
Yeah, no, I certainly can. So the analysis that the Dowd agencies and Ross Weber Grinnell did, which was independent of what you also had Cook and Company do, the analysis that we did, we looked at fiscal 20, fiscal 21, and fiscal 22. And over that 3-year period of time, it is estimated that had you been self-funded during that period of time, there would have been a savings of approximately $3.4 million over that 3-year period of time. And again, Rory, I think like you were alluding to, I do want to make sure that we do preface that, past performance does not predict any future savings. That's just what those dollars would have been had we, been able to take advantage of some of the cost savings and administrative savings of being self-funded in those past 3 years.
So my question is, well, first of all, I didn't quite get it. Was that 2.4 or 3.4?
That was 3.4.
3.4, and that was over 3 years?
Correct, over a 3-year period of time.
Okay. All right, so thank you. That answers that one. So the other question would be, would we incur now additional costs in the administration of the payments?
No. So the way that this would work, and Steve can touch a little bit more on this, is all of the billing, right? Because that's like where my mind went to when this was first brought up, is how much is this actually going to cost us to administer? Do we have the manpower? Are we going to have to hire more people to do this? Are we going to be billing providers, so on and so forth? The carriers, whether it be a Blue Cross Blue Shield or a Health New England, those are the two that we usually get good responses from every year. There's others that may want to look at this. They have something called a level monthly deposit, where we would make a regular deposit towards this account. They do all the work, and then there's a true up. If the performance over that month, the previous month, was really good, maybe our bill the next month is less. If it was more than what the total cost was more than what we deposited, it may go up slightly, which is very similar to how our dental is currently paid. Right now, we pay a monthly level deposit, and there's quarterly settlements. Sometimes We don't have to pay as much. Sometimes we have to pay a little bit more. But all the administrative work is actually done by the carrier themselves.
Okay, thank you. That answers my questions.
Yep.
Okay. Any questions?
So Rory, one of the things to the team that might be helpful is, obviously this is a short timeline between now and if we're going to do this for July 1st, and I'm generally warm to doing it because most large employers now often use self-employed. In fact, I know although it's in Massachusetts, I think it's about 2/3 fully funded, 1/3 self-funded, and in many states, Connecticut, for example, it's like 85% of employer groups are self-funded, and most government structures are self-funded. So this is actually more the norm than it is the exception. So that obviously there's a lot of track record there. On the other hand, I would like to make sure that we have all the numbers as to if we're agreeing to get involved this is the city council basically saying, go ahead and do it. I just want to make sure that when we say we're tonight opening the door, I want to make sure that there's still a handle on the door and we can shut it if the numbers ultimately come back that this is not a good thing. And so if you could speak to benchmarks and process, and then I got a couple follow-up questions.
Absolutely. So there was a timeline that I believe had been submitted to the council from the mayor. If not, we'll again make sure that you have that. But to your larger point, Councilor Jordan, we would be operating on a parallel track. If this were to move forward and the council were to adopt this, it's not going to happen overnight. There's still other things that would need to be done, and there'd be other opportunities for the council to have input and actual votes before anything were to take place.
What would be an example of that?
So we have to form the trustees.
Okay. There's a trust document, I understand. isn't there?
There is a draft trust document
Right.
that hasn't been executed yet, and that's just like other contracts would have to come to the council. There'd be financial implications. There'd be appropriations that would have to be made. There's a number of things.
Okay.
But when I say open the door, what I mean by that is, and we can operate on parallel tracks in this timeline. When we go to get our renewals, we're on our normal timeline right now. We usually want to have at least a full 6 months of experience before we get our renewals from the carriers, because the more data, the better the numbers are going to be, and at least more honest the numbers are going to be, more true, right? So we would be able to request both renewal rates for a fully insured plan and a self-insured plan. And we'd be able to review them and be able to decide. That would be the first thing. That would be an internal decision, right? If we get the numbers and it's looking like, well, maybe this isn't going to be as beneficial as we had hoped or thought based on the renewal rates, it's a non-starter. We're not moving any further, right? But if it continues to show us potential benefit, we would move on to the next step. So that's what opening the door looks like and what the timeline looks like. We've been actually having more meetings with the Section 19 group, which is not a bad thing at all. But we traditionally don't start meeting with them until around this time to talk in earnest about renewals. Okay. We've been meeting with them pretty much nonstop since the last renewal cycle was done about this, because they were very interested to know about the GIC potential. Mm-hmm. They were interested to know. So we've been working hand in glove with them every step along the way, because we know we also need their buy-in and their approval to move in this direction as well. So that's what opening the door looks like. That's a rough estimate of the timeline. There's a specific, timeline that the brokers had put together that we'll make sure that you guys have. And, realistically, if this were to move out of committee tonight, be taken up and approved at the council meeting in February. That gives us the green light to make sure we know, we're not going to request quotes if we know it's a non-starter, right? We're just going to stay with a fully insured model. And it's really around March, early April, when the rubber hits the road, because we need to have a plan in place and we need to know what our options are prior to open renewal, which takes place in mid to late May, so that we can have everybody enrolled and ready to go for July 1. So we're kind of, it's an accelerated schedule if we were going to do this, but there's enough time for us to make those decisions.
Okay.
So I think if I'm correct, that Counselor Jordan, if we approve this tonight, that is merely to create a trust.
Correct.
But if you find out that this isn't the way to go, this isn't,
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And the last time and this is in recent history, the last time the council was asked to do something similar had to do with the OPEB, which is something that Councilor Jordan and I are very much aligned with, and and I'm sure everybody else, but this is something he and I have talked at length about.
Definitely,
Wanting to make sure that we have some good protections in place with that. That was multiple steps. The trust was adopted. Then there were subsequent orders to put some money in the trust, and that's just sitting there right now. That we're not actually doing anything with that yet, because there's still more work that would need to be done in order for us to build out that trust. But it at least allowed us to take those first procedural steps by adopting the state law.
okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, by way of follow-up, and I know this kind of goes to what Counselor Sullivan's question was, it's going to be, now we hope that in the long run, this is going to be a savings, but people understand this is a long-term play here.
Correct.
And that if we actually were to save money in the trust, which is the goal, we're going to have to build up many years of savings in order to allow us to have a cushion for the year that you spend more.
Yes.
Right? So, because there's going to be years where you go over 100%. Of premium to claims, and you'd actually be in medical loss. Well, this is to make up for that. And obviously, a lot of my questions will be centered around the stop loss coverage. Where does that attach? Where does that premium? We'll be looking for some. Oh, thank you. We'll be looking for some of the modeling around that in the future steps.
Yep.
So look forward to getting all of that. And
Yeah, there's stop loss, and then the other thing that I want to make sure I flag for the counselors to keep an eye out. This is something I'm also very interested in, and this is something the brokers are going to get us some more information on if we continue to progress. Pharmaceutical costs, when you break down what we're actually paying for with health costs, pharmaceutical costs are some of the largest cost drivers, right? I've seen, I've spent a long time looking at some of our experience rates and within the city, and when you look at it, there have been some years where, if not for some of these pharmaceutical costs, we would have been doing just fine. But the pharmaceutical costs are so great. The opportunity for us to have lower pharmaceutical costs because of potential rebates, because of other opportunities to save money related to that, will also come part and parcel with a self-funded model. So in addition to the stopgap, I want to make sure that that's something that counselors are on the lookout for. It's something that I know I'm going to be on the lookout for, and something that that the rest of the team is as well.
Well, Jeff just brought us the schedule.
Wonderful.
Different things, so that's a good thing to have. And I'll check with Counselor Givner first if she has anything to add, and then the other counselors that are here tonight if they have questions, and those that are on Zoom if they have questions.
I'm all set. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Counselor Bartley, any questions? Counselor McGrath-Smith, any questions?
Thank you. My understanding is that we were self-funded at one time, yes?
Yeah, so a number of years ago, again, going back, I want to say this was in the early 90s. I was not, paying attention to such things in the early 90s. The city did move into a self-insured model. The issue then there were a number of issues with that. The marketplace was very different. The broker, I'm going to use that term kind of loosely, not compared to the brokers we have now, but essentially the third-party administrator that we were working with, I believe went belly up, and that was part of it. It's much different now, to Councilor Jordane's point. Many large institutions, many governmental entities have moved in this model, and at the same time, the carriers welcome this and have built out a whole plan design that supports folks to be able to make something like this happen. But yes, there was many years ago, the city did dip its toes in this, and it didn't work out very well.
Okay. I just wanted to check with Kelly Curran and Attorney Mantaleski. If you have any questions or any more comments, you have to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Madam Chair. No, I do not. Rory did an amazing job of summarizing all the work. Like Rory said, Councilor Jordan had been in on a lot of the talks earlier in the year. I want to note that Maureen Ross O'Connell and Steve Corbin, who are our brokers, are on if anyone has any questions for them. And Attorney Mantaleski too. She's been helping with drafting the agreement for the trust.
Okay. I see Maureen has unmuted herself, so if she has anything to add or if anybody has any questions for her, now would be a good time to do that.
I would just add that many years ago when that was done, the city a trust was never created. It was being worked out of cash flow, and that was also a problem.
So when we were self-funded, Maureen, we didn't have a trust, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Any more comments? Then I would entertain a motion. Go ahead.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And a roll call is Counselor Sullivan,
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes, Counselor Jordan,
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio,
Yes.
and Counselor Givner.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Rory.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks.
Presentation.
Wasn't
Thank you.
expecting.
Okay. And again, I want to let the committee know that I've put different sections together rather than bouncing all over the place. So bear with me as far as what we're going to be taking up and when we're going to be taking it up. The next item I'd like to take up is item number 10, Murphy Ramboletti, and she is on Zoom, ordered that the City Council vote to approve the attached memorandum of understanding allowing the City of Holyoke to receive transportation reimbursement in accordance with the provisions of Every Student Succeeds Act and as allowed by the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 70, and Steve Mangano from the Holyoke Public Schools is on Zoom. So if either Tessa or Sean would like to take this up. and give
Thank
us some
you,
information.
Madam Chair. I'm going to let Sean take it from here, but I'm
I'm all set, yep.
I definitely wanted to introduce this order. It was asked of me to do so. It sounds like it is a great opportunity for us to get back some revenue. So anyway, I will let Sean take it from here. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Tessa.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep, I can.
So every year, the district incurs costs to transport students in its schools that are in the foster care system that live outside of Holyoke. And so in FY23, we incurred about $100,000 of transportation costs for that. In FY22, it was about $87,000, but it varies year to year. There is a program through the state that allows the district to access federal funding to get some partial reimbursement for those costs. They estimate about 20% reimbursement that would come back to the city. There isn't really a bunch of additional administrative work on our side. We already report these costs to the state. We keep track of them. There's one additional filing that we would submit each year that would report these costs to the state, and then that would trigger a reimbursement that would come back to the city. In order for us to access this program, we need authorization from the council to enter into an MOU with the Department of Education and the Executive Office of Health and Human Services. It's a partnership that put this program in place. And that's about it. So in summary, the estimated reimbursement we think we'd get back for the city each year somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000, but it'll depend on the cost for that year.
Okay. We have the memorandum of understanding, but I think I should probably read it. Memorandum of Understanding, Every Student Succeeds Act Transportation claiming under Title 4-E of the Social Security Act. The Memorandum of Understanding has been created and entered into and then you put the date, by and between the following parties in relation to the administration of school of origin transportation costs under Every Student Succeeds Act to maximize federal financial participation from the federal government through Title 4E of the Social Security Act and Executive Office of Health and Human Services, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, Department of Children and Families, and then the Commonwealth City or Town Regional School District, we would put the name on that. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Executive Office of Health and Human Services, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, Department of Children and Families, and the city or town of regional school districts, and you put that in, by and through hereafter, the LEA hereby agree to the following terms and conditions as they relate to reporting costs and receiving Title 4E allowable federal reimbursement for said costs as they relate to transporting children eligible under Title 4E, foster care to and from their foster placement and their school of origin, effective for the dates of service on or after April 1st, 2019. So you would need a vote from the city council to approve this? And
Yeah, we would
let
need
you go
a
after
vote
it?
to enter into this agreement. It's a one-time vote. Once we have that approval, we're in the program and we can go after this reimbursement every year.
Okay,
And we need this vote, and then we need to submit some stuff to the state by March 1st in order to get reimbursement for FY23.
okay. Any questions?
Yeah, just a couple.
Yep, go ahead.
What's the gentleman's name?
It is
Sean.
Sean.
Kevin Jourdain here. Question, just is there any cost or is there any administrative expense to the city that we should be aware of? And you said that this is going to net, you believe, between 10 and 20,000 total, 10 and 20,000 per year?
Yep. Yeah, good question. Between 10 and 20 per year. There likely is an administrative cost, but it's nothing that we would bear. It comes out of the reimbursement before we get it. Part of the MOU is that they're allowed to deduct the state's allowed to deduct any administrative costs. So they estimate 20% coming back after deducting any administrative costs.
Okay, there's no match to the city government generally or
Nope.
anything like that?
No, we're already
Anything-
incurring all of this cost out of pocket currently, so.
Okay, so there's nothing that I, as a city councilor, should be concerned about in terms of the general fund or the city side relative to this grant or any encumbrance or anything like that that I should be concerned about? This is strictly, for all intents and purposes, free money. We sign this and the state is giving out this effectively approximately 20 grand.
Yep, yes, it's, again, these are costs we are already incurring, so it's already an appropriation. It's part of the transportation items in the school budget. So yeah, this is just money coming back to the city.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, just through the chair. Sean, what if there's an amendment or a change? What does it come back to city council? I mean, I'm strongly doubting this goes on in concrete for the rest of the time. Not going to happen. So,
Yeah, so it can be amended, it says by mutual agreement of both parties. So if we wanted to either exit the agreement or change some of the language, we would initiate that with the state.
We meaning the HPS?
It would be the council, in conjunction with, if it was something school officials wanted to see changed, we could work with you all to propose this amendment. But the signer
Is that what it says in there?
The signer of the MOU, I believe, will be the superintendent.
Yeah, in terms of amendments, is that what it says in the agreement, the MOU? That amendments will be subject to council approval? Or something to that effect?
No, it doesn't say that in the,
So how do I know that?
I don't see that in, I can send the MOU document out, to the parties.
Yeah, I guess, there's nothing wrong with it in principle, but, things change over time. So I'd like to have an understanding before we sign off on it, what the role is and how the amendments will be administered. So if that's something, I don't see why we can't pass this forward and get an answer from you for next week, right? So.
Yeah, I can send this out, we can get this out to you tomorrow.
Thanks a lot.
It's a standard document. There's about 51 other communities in the Commonwealth that have signed up for this program.
Right, well, at this stage of your career, I'm sure you have a lot of faith in the Commonwealth of Mass, but I'm more of a jaded person, so.
I hear you.
Yeah,
I hear
thank
you. I gotcha.
Thanks a lot.
Any other questions or comments?
Make a motion be approved?
Second.
And roll calls, Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Just a point of order. Can we make it subject to that clarification, please?
What was the clarification?
About the discussion we just had about the amendment. So he's gonna look into it and get back to us.
Okay. How about this? If he doesn't get it back to us by our next meeting, then we'll add it on the floor. Does that make sense?
Well, can we add on the floor, Ken?
Yeah, why not?
I haven't seen the document, so I don't know that to be true.
We're just submitting a finance committee report, but the committee report can be amended by the full council.
But you have the MOU, I don't have it. So I'm assuming you have it in front of you. And Patty-
Now you do.
Yeah.
Now you do.
Well, okay,
It's 8 pages long if you'd like to read it.
I would like to read it, but I'm not gonna read it right this second.
Well, no, but between now and Tuesday, yeah.
Between now and Tuesday, I'll read it.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, but no, I don't think there's any problem doing that, yeah.
All right, so if you just make it contingent upon further clarification, that would be somewhat helpful.
Further clarification, what precise words should we use? Are you suggesting?
I wrote down can be amended by both parties in the future,
That
if
it-
there are any changes.
Does that sound?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
I move that.
So we have Counselor Sullivan,
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio?
Yes.
And Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, 5-0. Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, Chief Pratt, we're gonna go with your items. Item 3 is, okay, order that there hereby appropriate by transfer in the fiscal year 2024, $300,000 as follows. From sergeants, $150,000, patrolmen, $65,000, E911 dispatchers, $120,000, and that's a total of $300,000. And Chief Katowitz, I believe, is also, yes, you're on Zoom as well. So if either one of you want to talk about it.
Okay, that's my overtime, so I'll talk about it. So this is what we've been doing right along, is coming back to the council for moving money to the overtime account. This is the third time I've been back. This amount, based on the numbers I have right now, I think will get me to the end of the fiscal year. The average payroll has been for the year at 47, but the last 6 pay periods we're averaging about 35, and our last payroll was 28.5. So it is trending down. I think with the payrolls we have left, if things hold out, barring any kind of unforeseen circumstances, I think this will get me to the end of the year. The money is being transferred from the sergeant's line item. That's due to a shortage in the sergeant and grant money. The patrolman line item is from officer shortages. And then the last line item that it's coming from, the 120 from E911 dispatcher, is from the grant for PSAP, which is a reimbursable grant for dispatcher overtime, or dispatcher payroll.
I don't see him. Any questions to anybody?
I had one.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Chief, I know you were shooting for a goal of approximately 1 million for the year for overtime. What is this going to put us in the
It's
aggregate?
going
of
to put us at 1.1.
1.1, okay. And we had how much last year?
I think we were right at 1 million, or maybe just under, but I think we were at 1 million last year.
Okay, so is there a reason we're 10% up?
Yeah, basically, staffing, and we've been hit pretty hard this year with injured on duty, family medical leave, and military deployments. So the family medical leave, we've had a total of 6 officers use that since July. The injured on duty has fluctuated from 10 officers to currently of 14, as a high of 15. And we've had 1 or 2 military deployments too, I believe.
Anything else?
Yeah, Chief, do you think there's any other areas that we can save in the department to make up for the 100,000 here? Because we really are, as you know, watching our P's and Q's here, and just wondering, is there some other area, some other grant that perhaps came in better than expected, or some other expense somewhere else in the budget that you think you're likely to make up the 100,000 somewhere else?
Well,
maybe you didn't fill all the positions or something like that?
I think it's really, through attrition and like our, you know, as you know, because you've been here, you know, we start the year with, I think this year we started with 300,000 in overtime, and the shortages in those line items are what are usually mainly the patrolman line item, and that surplus money from the patrolman's line item that is what is usually transferred, and the DSAP grant are the 2 primary areas. So when we have the shortages, it's sort of a calculation that I do as I go along. Obviously, if I don't have the people, then I know that money's going to accumulate and I'm able to transfer it later. As far as like making up the 100, I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it, but I don't anticipate coming to the council for any extra money that wasn't already allocated in my budget. I think most of the money will come from all the money will come from within my budget, as it usually does.
All right, well, hopefully, you know, obviously, if you can see, maybe there's, you know, things that drive overtime. Obviously, if we don't have all the positions filled, then like your sergeant situation here, you had some grant money that came in, but if I believe we didn't end up filling all of the patrolman positions in the end, right? Because I think we funded approximately 93, but we ended up with maybe about 4 there that ultimately didn't pan out, or there was some scenario where I don't believe all 93 are currently filled, correct?
Right. We currently have 95 positions.
95, okay.
We're currently at 87 officers. 4 of them are in the academy. Like I mentioned, 12 are on IOD currently, and 1 military and 1 family medical leave, which puts our operating number around 69 patrolmen.
Okay, so when
that doesn't include supervising.
Right. So when you say we have 87, does that include the 4 recruits that are in the academy currently?
Yes.
Okay, so
They're scheduled to get out in March, so
Okay.
that's also going to help us.
Right.
And we're hopeful that our new hires for the May Academy could potentially include some already academy trained officers, which we could then roll right to the street. So that's what we foresee, provided that all holds up. So we should have the 4 plus maybe a couple more to hit the streets before the summer.
So do you envision?
That could put us up to about 89 by the summer.
Okay. So do you envision the, say, 6 to 8 positions that are empty that money being able to help us to subsidize the overage in the overtime?
Yes.
Okay.
And Chief, how many were injured on duty?
Patrolmen, there's currently 12.
Okay.
Overall, there's 15.
Okay.
There's 3 supervisors as well.
Okay, thank you. Questions, anybody else? Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, to the chair, Dave, welcome back. Just some administrative things, Dave. One is, did you say this was the third time you've been this fiscal year to us to make a transfer to overtime? Did I hear you say that?
Yes.
Okay, and this is 300. What do you have a summation of what the other two were? Were they comparable?
We started with 300. I came back for 200, and then 300 the last time, and 300 this time.
All right, and did you do you indicate coming back? Will you indicate now? Can you indicate now whether you have to come back a fourth time?
I don't believe so. Based on the numbers as I have them now, we should make it to the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, and then just the ILD. What's the length of maybe the party, without naming the party, a time that person's been on ILD? The longest person, the longest tenured person. I mean, the longest ILD person. I don't know how else to put it.
Right now, the longest person on ILD is 10 months.
Okay.
It ranges, and obviously, some are very short, a day or two, a week, a couple weeks, and then they're back, and then maybe someone else gets hurt and goes back out. But it ranges right now, currently, the ones that are out, it ranges from, I looked this up today because I know that some counselors were interested in that, 9 days up to 10 months with a varying amounts in between.
Yeah, and that's, and I don't want to go into the minutia of it, but we've reviewed this once before in my career relative to how the ILD is administered. Perhaps that could be something else for other counselors if they're so inclined to learn, but I'm sure you'd be welcome to questions about that. And I always appreciate that. And by the way, we used to, Dave, we used to have little tours for city council to go to various, areas of the city that councilors don't. I had a tour of HPD headquarters twice already last year. It was terrific. I was grateful, not including the tour that you gave me. So I had 2 separate tours. So maybe that's something we could think about coordinating with the city council president for the summer. Just a thought.
Absolutely.
And then I have one other question on point, and now it is. Okay. You mentioned that you're going to have potentially increased number of patrolmen starting in the summer. Is that what I heard?
Correct.
Is that something that we're going to see in terms of a budget reflected in line items for FY25? So in other words, we're going to have a more of a fuller complement of patrolmen and women. How do you anticipate the budget being affected?
So we will look to fill the vacant positions. I know someone asked me this a couple meetings back, and I did do an analysis if we were able to get to our full complement, that I could potentially see about a 300,000 savings in overtime.
And what
if
about
we can get there? But it's a process. I think we've talked about this as well. The academy is long. It's 5.5 months. This current group we have, it's tough. It's not an easy thing to get through. We lose officers during the course of the academy at times for different reasons. Some physical, some mental, and so what you put in, you don't always get out, and that's been our struggle currently. But we're trying to get on top of it and put the right amount in, as max it out, just so that we can get to that higher number so we can see more of those cost savings and put more services on the street.
Okay, thanks.
We want to get those out, the walking beats, the bike patrols, the things that people are looking for.
The segways?
I don't know about no, not segways. Those haven't been around in a while.
I'm not letting that go. That's okay. Motorcycles? We have
Oh,
one-
maybe the motorcycle, yeah.
We have one motorcycle, Dave.
That is still functional, yes.
I'm glad the one is functional. How about like giving that one a sister or brother?
Oh, see if I can find it in the budget. Unless you
Thank
want
you.
to appropriate more for that.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Counselor Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. Chief, a little unrelated, the four cadets we have right now, are they the ones that responded to the bad accident on 202?
Well, I don't know if they were, I know what you're talking about, but I don't know which cadets those are. I don't know if they were Hoyok, they were in the Hoyok Academy, but I don't know if they were the Hoyok cadets. I haven't had a chance to get that information.
Okay, I hope they were. If, the way these cadets responded to that accident, if this is the quality of people we have coming on the force, we're going to be in really good shape. That was truly heroic performance by.
Yeah, that was great work.
Yep.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question or comment?
Madam Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry. Counselor Rivera, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. So I'm currently transferring from plane to plane, from one plane to another. I'm on my way back to Massachusetts. Just wanted to give a heads up. In case my orders, I'm not on for my orders, can they be tabled for another day is the first thing, right? And
Okay,
then I think the second, go ahead.
Your order is up, but we can table it if you'd like us to, but it is going to be part of this.
I mean, I don't leave for another 20 minutes.
We can do it.
We can do it tonight.
We can do it next.
Are able to then?
Yeah,
If
we
could
can do
pass
it
on.
next. We
All
can do
right,
it-
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, all righty. So, first of all, entertain a motion to pass the overtime.
So moved.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Ocasio?
Yes.
And Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Okay, 5-0.
Recording stopped.
We
Okay,
lost our recording.
so what does that mean? Jeff, are we being recorded still? Okay, thank you. Okay. The next order is introduced by Counselor Israel Rivera. Order that the Holyoke Police Department come into the Finance Committee and elaborate on what is done with the money that is seized or forfeited due to the arrest or drug bust. Counselor, where are you? Rivera, do you have questions, or would you like the chief to respond first?
Yes, let me, first I'll give you a brief breakdown as to why I filed the order. One of the things is, I do know that when they do raids or busts, they end up splitting, the money that gets seized or forfeitures gets split between all the arresting agencies that were present at the moment. So if, for example, if they end up raiding with the DA's group, sure, no problem. If they partner with another agency, the other agency gets some of the money, but then they get the rest of it. So my question more or less is what's being done with the money that's been seized? How much is in it? And why can't we use that to purchase equipment instead of coming out of the general budget? Also, why can't we use that to pay overtime instead of coming out of the general budget? Thank you.
Okay, Chief Pratt?
It's an easy one. We do that. It's not quite like that. There are two separate accounts. One is federal forfeitures and one is state forfeitures. There's different splits based on different formulas. The one is overseen by the federal government and one is overseen by the DA's office for state forfeiture seizures. But it's basically the same. What we did do with the money is we use it to supplement
Recording in progress.
the drug operations that we are currently in. It's to further those drug operations. We do use it for training and equipment. I did take a quick look because I figured there might be questions. We used it, the federal account, we used it to pay for radio equipment that we didn't have in the budget that was cut. We used it to supplement training. I used it to purchase mini shields for the cruisers for each officer. With the shot spotter being implemented, there was some discussions here at the department about our officers being on shooting scenes quicker. So we wanted to give them the ability to have a shield to use if in case they encounter quicker into drug or gun things. There was some money used for canine expenses that were short. We also used money in the last year, I don't know if you'll remember, in the personnel equipment that we had the printer contract had to come out of our account and it was cut and there wasn't enough money in there, so I used about $6,000 or $7,000 out of that to offset that so that we could pay for that. We used it also, this is the state account for training. We did use it for overtime for the safe street operations, and that was we needed money to use it, and then that was reimbursed to us through another grant. So to answer your question, what's left in both accounts is basically what we got back, which is about $25,000 in one account, and the other account basically has $100 in it. So that's basically how we use it. We use it to supplement the ongoing drug operations that we have for training and for equipment. So that's exactly what we do use it for. And we do use it for overtime. We need to.
Thank you. So one last follow-up thing. It's more of a request. I'm wondering if you could send us a breakdown, line itemized, for the last 5 years of what's been being spent out of that account. And at the same time, if you can give us what's being put into that account over the last 5 years. Maybe you can mail that to us, each counselor, just so that we have an understanding with regards to that. Because I have questions. My question is mainly because there's no oversight with regards to that from our part, from the city. That is mostly on you guys then, which is okay. I don't have no issue with that, but it's just the same way that the library has their little foundation on the side and everyone else has their little foundations on the side. It would be nice to be able to have an understanding as to how much money is there frequently and how much is getting out. So that way we know what we're doing when we're making these decisions on cutting back. And I'm glad that you were able to use them to use the money to subsidize some of the cuts that we put in. Thank you again.
Just one question. How many years?
5.
5? Okay. We'll look into that.
Excuse me, Council Rivera, the best thing to do, I believe, would be to file an order so that it's in writing what specifically you're going to be asking for, and then we can send that to the chief.
Will do. Will
Okay,
do. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, and I'll entertain a motion that this order has been complied with.
So moved.
Counselor Sullivan? Counselor Sullivan?
Chief, just to follow up on what Councilor Rivera was saying, what you gave us in the accounting there was only one number, $6,000. So we have no idea what was, and you told us what is left, but how much was spent on overtime? All right, how much was spent on all of these other line items? You know, was there?
I just looked quick at it. I can get those. I just don't have it right in front of me, but we've got it.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps that can go into Council Rivera's order to have that information as well. Okay?
Yep.
All right, anybody else? Okay, Councilor Sullivan? Councilor Devine,
Yes.
yes? Councilor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilor Ocasio?
Yes.
And Councilor Givner?
Yes.
Okay, 5-0. Okay. Is Sergeant Zurheide here or online?
I can handle this one.
Okay.
He's here. In
Oh, all right.
earshot.
This is, I would take a motion to take up this item. Ordered that in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53, excuse me. The City Council hereby accepts the provisions of FY 2024 Edward J. Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, $49,920, no match grant, and authorizes the establishment of a fund and other method appropriate to the accounting of the receipts and expenditures to all resources associated with the administration of said grant. Will we take it off the table for discussion?
So moved.
Chief?
Okay, so, yeah, this is a grant that comes to us from the state, from the Executive Office of Public Safety. It basically will be used to do increased patrols, like our Safe Streets operation, walking beats, and bike patrols.
Okay.
It's a no-match grant. It's
Okay.
Money from the state to do that, and we work in conjunction with them. We work in conjunction with the state police when we do.
Okay, in conjunction. Okay, any questions? Entertain a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those, oh, sorry. Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio?
Yes.
Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Okay, 5-0. Thank you. Okay, now, let's see where we're going.
Was there fire department one, I think?
Yeah. Well, at first it's going to be the person from Conservation. Well, see, what I was trying to do is group everything together, make it much easier than what was on our original agenda. So is that person here? Okay, so we'll move on to something else, Aaron, before? Or do you want to? Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Agenda number 2, Chief Catalettis is on. That was a $20,000 transfer for capital. That one's.
Yeah, that's going to be coming up next.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, thank you, because I was wondering which one was for him. Counselor Givner?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I wasn't sure if we wanted to take up Counselor Rivera's item since he's still available.
Which one is this?
7.
Item 7
Yeah.
is where
I see item number 7.
Yeah, that's, it's coming up, but if you want, I can take it out of order. Counselor Rivera, if that's okay with everybody, ordered that the Honorable City Council work with the Law Department on identifying the criteria for the expenditure of community impact funding. It has been brought to my attention that at least one of the cannabis companies will soon be seeking a refund. How are we protected against this, and how have we spent the money as of now? Counselor Rivera? Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. So the purpose for me filing this was to try to make sure that we have certain mechanisms, or we're working on trying to build out certain mechanisms in place to try to protect us from any of the cannabis industries possibly trying to do something or pulling out. But I've already conversed with Lisa and the op-ed office to make sure that everything is in line. So far, it sounds like they've already gotten everything straightened out and they're working on it. I'm okay with it being leave to withdraw or complied with, whichever one you want it to be.
Well, I would think if you've spoken to them, we should order to comply with, if that's okay, unless you have questions.
I had one question.
Okay, go ahead.
Totally worked for me, Patty.
Okay, 1 second. Counselor
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Counselor Jordan has a question.
Yeah, thanks. In the order, it suggested that there was somebody looking for their money back. Who's that? I'd be interested to know, because one of the things, I know Counselor Murphy Romboletti and I had talked about this at some length at one point, which was, you know, in some of these other communities, there's actually been these actions about people seeking these different impact funds back. And that's why, you know, a lot of us had reservations to make sure we really dot our I's and cross our T's, so we don't get into one of these pickles where somebody's saying you didn't spend, Holyoke, you didn't spend the money appropriately. So I was wondering, one, who's looking for the money back? And then two, do we see any other threat about these monies? And then I guess my other follow-up question, which is related to that, is when we did the middle school project, it was pitched to the council that we were going to basically use all of the impact funds to put as a down payment on the payments owed for the school. And did that ultimately get, quote unquote, the king's blessing, that that's actually legitimate, that we can do that? Because that was a main piece of all of this, of the funding for the school. So there's a lot going on this topic. So I'm interested in what's going on.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Yes.
So there was no particular company that spoke to me directly. I just understand that there are rumblings that a couple of them possibly were looking to do that. So before that, I wanted to get ahead of it. That was the thing for me. But with regards to the school piece, I hear you on that 110%. That is not necessarily a question for me. I think that would be a question for room one, and to see how that's handled. But ultimately, so far, it seems like after talking to Lisa and Aaron, that a lot of the things have been kind of tidied up. But again, I feel free to reach out to room one to try to get the answers around the school piece.
Okay, might be a good idea. There's still time to file orders, so maybe I'll do a follow-up. Thank you, Councilor Rivera.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Rivera. We'll take a motion that this order's been complied with.
So moved. Second.
I don't have to do a roll call on that, do I?
I think you do.
Okay. Roll call, Councilor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilor Devine, yes. Councilor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilor Ocasio?
Yes.
And Councilor Givner?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all very much, and thank you, Councilor Rivera. Okay. Now we're getting to, this is just the conservation, yeah, for that grant, okay? Introduced by Councilor Devine, ordered that in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, the City Council hereby accepts the provision of the 2023 Community Mitigation Fund Transportation Planning Grant, $82,300, no match, grant, and authorizes the establishment of a fund or other method appropriate for the accounting of said receipts and expenditures of all resources associated with the administration of said grant. Make a motion to take it off the table.
Second.
And I'm looking for the person, Counselor, there you are.
There's Yoni.
Thank you. Do you have, want to talk about it, or do you have we have any questions?
Yeah, sure. I can give a little background. This is a grant that's being administered by the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency to update Holyoke's hazard mitigation plan. This is a plan that's required by FEMA. They require any communities that receive grants to have an up-to-date hazard mitigation plan, that the city has steps and strategies for addressing mitigation of different natural hazards that might affect the community. And Holyoke's up for a renewal. And fortunately, there's this funding source that's also available to update the plan itself, so that we don't have to do all the labor. We can hire a planning agency contractor to work with the city to do it. So that's what this funding is all about. The committee has a packet. There's a pretty good scope of work that was included with the grant award that talks about the steps that'll be taken to update the plan according to federal FEMA guidelines. The city will be selecting and hiring a vendor. Pioneer Valley Planning Commission is who we worked with when we did the plan in 2016. There'll be a hazard mitigation planning committee it'll be comprised of different departments to whom it's relevant, fire, police, planning, conservation, any DPW, for instance. Yeah, and they'll go through the process, and there'll be community input at a later stage of the planning process. And so it's pretty straightforward as far as the funding. The match is going to be achieved all through in-kind time of the different staff members who will be part of the planning committee. We have until FY26 to complete it and use all the funding. I'm hoping it'll be much quicker than that, probably a calendar year.
Okay, I have one
So,
question first.
yeah, happy to answer any questions.
I just have one quick one. It says the grant manager is the city engineer, and we don't have one just yet. How will that work? Oh, excuse me a second. Carl's here from the DPW. He'll answer that.
I think we're on number 8, Patty. It's actually, Yoni's is number 8, that's DPW.
Yeah, I think
Oh, I'm
it's the
sorry.
wrong item
Yep,
number. The
yep.
item number 9 is 82,300. Item number 8 is for conservation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, I'll be managing the grant.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right.
Question?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Hey, Yoni, good to see you again. Question, what would be some examples, just so citizens can kind of get a visualization of some of the natural hazards in the city that would be quote unquote mitigated? Like we do all this, like what would be, 1 or 2 examples of, those type of things that this would be an objective of this grant ultimately?
Yeah, so.
Here in Holyoke,
there's
of course, yeah.
Yeah, right, very Holyoke specific in our case. Yeah, there's a few different steps to the process. One is even before getting to all the natural hazards that we might be worried about in our community, like extreme heat events or flooding, there's actually a process whereby there'll be an inventory of all city infrastructure. And through that, we'll actually be identifying like which structures and parts of the city might be most vulnerable to different types of hazards. So, areas where the infrastructure might be a little older or, I don't know, near areas that might be more prone to flooding will get different considerations as part of the plan. And part of the process is also going to be identifying key projects that would make the community safer, improvements to stormwater or municipal buildings that would make them more resilient in the face of natural hazards. And then when that's in our plan and we apply for the BRIC funding or the FEMA project grants, we can say we identified it through this process and hopefully be more competitive for getting the funding.
I see. Okay, so what this is doing is, this is, if you will, making the inventory ultimately of what the potential at-risk hazards are in the city of Holyoke. And I'm assuming the state's doing this in a whole bunch of communities, right? And then this is going to be our list. And then there's either they're going to come in with some big infrastructure bond or grant or do some sort of matching program to say, this area was identified as for a potential washout or, different types of things. And then, here's a 50% grant if you want to fix that type. That's how you envision this playing out?
Yeah, that's the hope, right?
Okay, cool.
But
all right.
we have to do the plan to be eligible.
Okay. Michael, Counselor Sullivan?
Yeah, so, Yoni, I mean, one of the big problems I see just we're every year we seem to get further and further behind on it, is the number of dead trees we've got on city-owned properties. Now, myself, I see that when you talk about wind hazards, storm hazards, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And we're getting further and further behind the curve. Is this something that could be addressed in this study and get some grant fund, something to really get aggressive with this? I mean, we've got dead trees even overhanging the playgrounds at Kelly School. We've got them right here on Main Street. We've got them on High Street. We've got them all over the city, and some, up by Rowan Park. You go right down the list, you can find them everywhere, and we're not catching up.
Yeah, so that can definitely be part of the planning grant. I mean, it's really up to our committee of city staff and possibly city councilors, if there was interest, to come up with what we think are the biggest hazards to the city. So I think that would definitely be appropriate. As to whether the FEMA grants can be used for tree removals, I'm not sure. But I'll say, I'll recommend that you stay tuned, because we did get a USDA Urban and Community Forestry grant that will, it can be used in large part for tree removals to address exactly the backlog you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, just sort of Chair Ione, why don't you just remind us about, I thought it was a $60,000 grant. Just remind us that of the status of that grant, the amount, and then the entities awarded, and then because I thought that was for just what Councilor Sullivan was mentioning, tree removal and things of that sort. Do you recall?
The $60,000 grant?
I thought it was.
We got some grants for tree planting and also for tree pit improvements.
Yeah, I'm virtually certain it was for stump removal and things of that sort.
Right.
You don't recall that?
So.
Yeah, so there was we've gotten a few different versions of the grant. There was one we completed last year, and we have another $30,000 now, and we're trying to finalize our list of sites for that.
Okay, and where's that list? I mean, is that a list you can share? Okay, I think that goes to what the councilor just mentioned.
Sure, but it's not, I think what Councilor Sullivan's asking about is removal of standing dead trees, and the grant that I currently have won't cover that activity.
Okay, so I'm looking at a grant from, maybe I'm a little bit out of date here, but it's dated August 28th, 2020, street tree stump removal and tree pit creation in downtown Holyoke. What, is that one all set now? Because that says the cost is $25,000, the grant amount was $19,950. Is that one still active, or is that one completed?
No, that was completed.
Okay, so I guess that's.
Yeah, I can provide a list of those sites. There were 14 tree pits.
Well, you should be doing that anyhow, and you may have, because that's an ordinance that after we receive a grant. I think you've been pretty good about that, but I just don't recall the final report on that one, Ione, so.
Yeah.
And any and all grants are supposed to have a final report to the city council relative to all this, just a one-pager, just so we can have it for our files and answer any questions, so.
Eventually.
That'd be helpful, thank you.
Is that Aaron?
Aaron.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Counselor Givner?
I just had a quick question to Ione. I noticed that like the water department and like DPW are able to put up lists of things they're working on or once they complete things through their page on the website. I'm wondering if that's something that when you get grants that you're putting up or could put up so that the community knows, and then it would be the same kind of information you could send the council, but it would be for anyone to access. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay. Everybody else set?
Thanks, Ione.
And just for the correction, this is a Mass Emergency Management Agency Hazard Mitigation Plant, 26,800, 10% in-kind volunteer match. So I'll entertain a motion that we pass this tonight.
So moved.
Okay, roll call, Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio?
Yes.
And Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Okay, 5-0. Thank you. We're getting there, people that are waiting. Okay, the next one is for Aaron, and let's see. All right, item 6. I order that the accordance to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, the City Council hereby accepts the provisions of the FY '23 TDI Equity 38,550 no match grant and authorizes the establishment of a fund or other method appropriate for accounting of receipts and expenditures of all resources associated with the administration of said grant. And we have Aaron Vega from Planning and Jamie Morrow from Procurement. Oh, okay. Yes, she is online. Yep. Thank you. So.
Good evening. So before you have a grant acceptance, and I will give a little backstory and get us to where we are today. So this grant is an example, once again, of a good private and public partnership, and also really great interdepartment work. So this is again an example of our office working with purchasing, the law department, and of course our private public partners out there. This is also really focused again on small businesses and of course the high street visioning work that we're doing through TDI and HRA and other departments, as well as yourselves. So going back, of course, this really started pretty much 3 years ago when I started here. We had the Rapid Recovery Plan that Baker put forth. Holyoke was chosen to be one of the Rapid Recovery communities. We got a consultant appointed to us, Third Eye Network, Dr. Lomax Campbell. We've worked with him on some other initiatives, including our Small Business Creative Financial Solutions document, which is, of course, online. So more work that we're doing to support our small businesses in Holyoke. But this Rapid Recovery Plan was put forth post-COVID to help municipalities create an action item plan to mostly focus on their downtown revitalization and how we were going to, again, pull out of recovery from COVID. And amongst those, there's some infrastructure recommendations in there. I mean, there's an inventory of our sidewalks, storefronts on High Street. A lot of mapping data was done. It was really great timing because a lot of that information then was transferred over to Kevin Maforte, our TDI fellow here on High Street, and through Mass Development. And so during that process, was interesting is that during the rapid recovery process, the REDO grant opportunity came available. And the REDO grant, again, through the Baker administration, was funneled through the Western Mass EDC. And it was interesting because the grant availability was able to be given to rapid recovery communities before our rapid recovery plan was done. So it was really interesting that Baker was able to funnel some money through the Western Mass EDC. Of course, we applied immediately, and one of the action items was, of course, addressing storefronts on High Street and a way to support small entrepreneurs and local artists. And so, hence the birth and the creation of the Artery. We asked, of course, for 1 year of operations. We got half of what we asked, or a little less than half. But then, of course, during the process, a second REDO grant came about, and that extended the Artery funding for almost a full year, which again was the original ask. That, of course, was done through the RFP process, and we got the location just across the street. Of course, everyone knows because everyone's been there, and supporting our local artists and our small businesses. So then recently, another opportunity came about with the TDI Equity Grant, which is why we're here today. And this is really important grant because one of the focuses that we're doing on High Street is to reactivate the upper floors. Many of our ground floor there's still a lot of emptiness, but much of it's occupied, some of it underutilized, but the upper floors, as you know, is very vacant. So this grant specifically goes to the repair of an elevator, which of course open those upper floors to small businesses, which I believe some already exist up there, but there would be much more access and be compliant. So during this process, of course, some things always come up with what we do in our office, and of course working with the law department, purchasing, and everybody else that helps us get these sort of funds and these grants and these projects going. The city still needed to be in a lease agreement with this property. And so a short-term lease was put together just till March 1st or February 20, till March 1st. And so we're a month and a half, or 2 months, or less than a month away from that ending. When we first presented the grant, of course, to legal and purchasing, we had to figure out how to, get the approval of a short-term lease. That, of course, pushed our timeline out. So I think one of the questions that came up was why the mayor signed something in December that started in October?
September.
So that was the process of us getting all the documents in order that needed to be done. And so that short-term lease agreement, then we can accept the grant, and then of course, the city's out of that, as I mentioned, March 1st. So this was a long road to get to where we are, and it kind of shows just some of the effort that goes into supporting one storefront on the city of Holyoke. What's been nice now is also during this last year is the creation of Holyoke Art, which under its umbrella, of course, has the print shop and other activities and events throughout the city. They've taken over paying the artery lease. They will be entering the lease on March 1st on their own, so we'll be separate of that. We do have funding to cover one more rent payment, but Holyoke Art has already paid. Holyoke Art has already paid December and January, so we do have the mass gaming mitigation funds that if anything were to happen, we can commit our funds, but we haven't had to pay the rent during this time period because some of the grant spilled over. There was still extra money through that grant, and then of course Holyoke Art was already taking up the lease payment during this process. So this is of course, as I mentioned, we have the backup in case anything happens where we have to cover our commitment, which was what purchasing the legal department needed to make sure. So that's where we are today. There is no match to this. It is for elevator repair. We'll open up the upper floors and support what's going on here in High Street. Again, taking full advantage of all those grant opportunities, especially with mass development, as they are very focused on supporting the efforts here in Holyoke.
Great, thank you. Anything else?
No, just to kind of piggyback on what Aaron said. So, in all honesty, Aaron's department did bring this lease to the mayor to sign in a timely fashion. However, we were concerned that there was legal issues.
Right.
So, oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, Dave.
Is someone speaking, Madam Chair?
It's me. I'll start over. Sorry. Let me backtrack. So Aaron's department did present this to the mayor in a timely fashion. However, there was some legal issues that we had to make sure it was legal. Because of the third extension of this lease, it flagged procurement. We couldn't keep extending this lease without a procurement. We had to make it available to the public if there was a better space for the artery to go in, so we couldn't show preferential treatment to this building. So because of the third extension of the lease, it did make us do a procurement. Steve Bosco was the only submitter, and we were able to obtain that same location. But it was a public procurement where other people had, the opportunity to submit. So we do recognize that it was not, timely, and sometimes things like that happen, but it was all to support a small business and try to keep, be able to accept that money and fix that elevator.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, Kathy, if there's anything you want to add?
No, I think you pretty much said it. That really was it. We had to make sure about the procurement issues, and there were grant requirements that we also had to make sure that we were meeting. And I had some email conversations with, with the state, and they indicated, because I thought it was going to be we needed to own the whole building, but they said no. So once they said that, and we did the bid because it was triggered by the third lease, we took care of both those legal issues.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just add, just quickly, obviously, thanks. I've learned more about procurement than I really wanted to. The law department's been great with this and everything else, but really the yeoman's work of this grant and this project is Jennifer Keat. That's who our development specialist, our senior project manager who has been monitoring this and does most of our grant work. Lots of email threads going back and forth to get the legal, and it helps that she's also a paralegal, so it's definitely helpful.
That does help, yeah. Thank you. Councilor Jordan?
Yeah, great. So thank you, everyone, for coming in. Really appreciate it, and had an opportunity to really review all the documents and some of the legal back and forth on some of this. So the first thing I do when I'm examining these type of things is, are we in compliance with our law, right, our city ordinances? So we begin the analysis with section 2-36 336, excuse me. And it says the first thing is whenever any department wants to come forward with a lease, they're required to get the approval of the mayor and a 2/3 vote of the city council to approve for the request of a lease, okay? Any interest in land, in the acquisition, our ordinances are very, very clear with regard to this. So first of all, we've now on lease number 3, and there's been 0 votes of the city council to approve any lease to anybody, to even seek a lease. So I just want to remind our department heads of the process is that you have to see the mayor and get the 2/3 approval of the council to seek a lease. Then, if it goes over the $500 threshold, right, not $35,000 threshold, by the way, $500 threshold, all right, then it's supposed to either be done through an RFP or an IFB, right, process, one of the two. And then that whole process goes through its machinations, and then you're, as purchasing director, supposed to present that back to the mayor. He's supposed to pick someone, and then it's supposed to come back again to the city council, and we're supposed to approve it by a majority vote, telling us all the merits and demerits of why we should approve this one. Because you could have had theoretically multiple bids, right? No, I'll put the space over here for $800 a month, not $1,400 a month. And then that's supposed to come. So there's supposed to have been 2 votes on bid number 1, on lease 1, 2 bids, 2 votes on lease 2, and 2 votes on lease 3. So we're 0 for 6 at this point, okay? So we're now, when I raised this issue, I was told that, well, we referenced a lease in the grant document, so by sort of implication, it views it that like you granted the lease too. Well, if you look at the actual votes that are recorded in the clerk's office, it says specifically just that we accept the provisions of the state grant, and number 2, that we establish a fund for the processing of those. At no point in there does it ever reference that this council approved a $1,400 a month plus utility lease to anybody. Okay. Now, as interesting as it turns out, you also gave a lease twice to an entity that legally you couldn't even give a lease to, because you gave it to Aero Properties, who legally doesn't even own the building. And of course, somebody eventually picked up on that by lease number 3 and went to Catalpa Inc., who actually does own the building. So that wasn't in legal compliance. So my question is, who is reviewing these processes that we're actually leasing to people that we legally can lease to, and we're following a process that's legal? Is that purchasing's job, the grant, law department? Who oversees that?
I was the purchasing director for this 3rd extension, and that's where we got involved with where we put it out to RFP. I was not in my role in the prior ones that went before you.
Okay.
And
So-
if I may add, that's the same thing for me, because this is when we had a conversation with OPED, because we had to explain why the bid law was triggered. And so we were able to fix that part of it. And Councilor Jordan, thank you for bringing this up, because you're correct that the ordinance does say, has procedures, what we have to do with acquisition and disposition. The only thing I would add, though, is that it doesn't specifically say that documents have to be separated. Now, I understand what you're talking about. It could be very confusing when you've got in front of you a grant package. And I can only say that hopefully we won't have a situation like this again. But if we do, because usually leases do go before you without anything else. You have the lease, you approve it, and that's right. This was a little different because the grant money was being used to pay the lease, but still, or pay the rent. But still, I understand what you're getting at. It's rather confusing for the city council to get all of that together, and where it might be confusing. So I can basically say, mea culpa, and the next time we have a situation like this, we will, before we go anywhere, we will bring this to city council so that we can get the approval.
I really appreciate that, Kathy, and I know, if people's heart is in the right place, but at least if the first 2 votes had at least referenced a lease, that would have helped. But now, let's talk about the third one, which is where we stand today, what we're actually voting on now. So the other two are kind of water over the dam. And here we stand today with, thank you, the mayor's joined us too, excellent. So on lease number 3 now, we don't have anything approved. We've got a request for a grant, right? That hasn't been approved, it's sitting right here for approval, right? And we don't have an approval of any lease, and now we know that you have to have a vote on the front and the back end before you put it out to bid, right? So how is it, that all being true, that the mayor is put in a position where he's told he can legally sign off on a lease when he doesn't have any legal standing whatsoever to sign that lease?
I think what's happening here, Kevin, is we're so busy in trying to, because these issues were issues, and you rightly pointed out about Arrow Properties. That was an issue too. So this particular project presented a lot of challenges. Had we to do it over again? No. I mean, you follow the ordinance, you follow the bid law. And here we had the extra added issue of the grant itself. So this is not something that's going to be missed all the time. I mean, I want to say that's not going to happen. I don't think the mayor should be put in a position like that. I agree with you. And, he won't be. He won't be.
I appreciate that. So in terms of the grant, and thank you, by the way, I received some good news here momentarily, that Artery is actually going to take over this lease.
No, Holyoke Art.
Or Holyoke Art, or who?
Yep.
Is that the Artery and Holyoke Art, is that kind of one and the same?
Holyoke Art is the umbrella. It's a nonprofit.
Okay.
Artery would be one of their things. The print shop is one of their programs, and then they do the.
So Holyoke Art is sort of, they have a bunch of these sub-entities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they're the main organization.
They're the main.
So theoretically, they could be the leaseholder.
And they will, yes, and they will.
And
be
they will
March 1st. And they will be March 1st, and absolutely. And then to Kathy Degnan's point, one of the issues with this grant in particular was that the city needed to have control of this property through a lease agreement, which is not normal. We've never really, this is the first time we've applied for this grant. So this is not a normal. So yes, they can be taken over. They will be taken over March 1st. And like I said, they've already paid December and January rent.
Okay. So I guess my next question is then, why would we want the city's name on this when it could be Holyoke Art? My concern from a number of perspectives is, one, let me back up before I get that question, is what is the funding source that you're using to pay the rent? What monies are we using to do that?
The redo grant.
The redo grant.
Twice. Those are the 2 votes that we approved the redo grant.
So that's still, even up to now, has enough money in it to keep paying the rent?
No, that had enough money that paid up till November. Holyoke Art paid December and January.
Okay.
So they're supposed to.
On behalf of us?
Yes, on behalf of us. And as I said, we have the Mass Gaming Mitigation Fund that we can use to pay February if needed, if Holyoke Art needs any support.
So Holyoke Art is going to pay December through March?
Yes, or December through February, because our lease ends March 1st. We're not responsible for March.
Okay, so December through February. Okay. So the reason I bring this up is, it's very important when we're doing these grants that we're being extremely transparent with the state, who's the people that are giving us the money, right? So my concern as a person that was reading this, all right, honestly, the first 2 that came through, all I hear is the magic words, you're doing wonderful things on High Street, and it's no match. It doesn't cost us anything. So, my guard is a little down on the first 2. I didn't honestly do the sort of dig in like I did on this one here, because now sort of my antenna was up. But when reading the 3 grants, nowhere in there, especially on number 3, is it made clear that their Holyoke Art is actually the people paying the rent. So, for example, if I'm at the state and I'm reading your application back to me, it says in there that the city of Holyoke is paying $1,400 a month plus utilities, not that really we're not. that in fact this other organization is paying the money, not us. So is the state aware that someone other than the city is paying the rent?
Is the state aware? Well, the state, I mean, I guess in short answer, probably no, but I mean, I appreciate that you think the state is more scrutinizing than the city. I would actually say the city is more scrutinizing than the state with the grants, especially through mass development and the grants we've been working with. I mean, we've learned a lot working with Kathy and with Jamie on how to write these grants. So, we accepted the responsibility for this, knowing that we had rent paid through November, and knowing we had the mass gaming grant to pay for it. So we still had the funding to do it. We were relieved that Holyoke Art, which again, I don't know if your comment was, why not do it for Holyoke Art, which is what we want to do. They didn't exist when we did those first two grants. They just existed like 6 months ago. So this is new opportunity for us to move this off. So they weren't around when we did the redo grants. So we had the funding. So we took the responsibility. We were then relieved that Holyoke Art could then pay the rent, and we're now able to use that mass gaming money for something else. So we accepted full responsibility to pay the 6 months, knowing that we already had 3 months paid, as I mentioned, because it was left over from the redo grant already. And we knew that we had the money for 3 more months, but thankfully Holyoke Art had been saving the sales and saving their money for the last year they've been open, and we were able to pay the rent. So but we had the money, so we were committed. So you could take Holyoke Art out of this conversation because we had the money. And so the state was never aware of Holyoke Art because they were never going to be responsible for the rent. We knew we had to be responsible for the rent in this agreement, so we had the mass gaming grant to do that. So we knew we were responsible for the rent.
And the concern with that is due to the fact that the state saying one of the mandates is that we have, at a minimum, a lease interest in the property.
Right, and for this grant.
Right, but if in fact is it really not a quote-unquote sham lease where it's actually really them leasing it, they're paying the rent, and we're really not, but in name only, it's the city of Holyoke. I just don't want anybody, because then we would disqualify for the grant. And that's a liability potentially on us. I don't know if legal has explored that, because it isn't often that you sign a lease with somebody and some third party undisclosed pays the rent on your behalf. So the question is, wouldn't it be safer, what's done is done, I guess, on the first 2 leases, but for this one, wouldn't it be better to have it in Holyoke Art's name and that they pay the rent, and if they can get this money to fix the elevator, more power to them? I mean,
But they can't because the lease the grant requires the city to be a leaseor. So I mean, to your point, we were thinking we were going to be done paying the rent in November, back in July, August, right? When we're planning off our stuff. So we're like, okay, that's coming up, and then this grant opportunity comes up with these requirements. So it's like, oh, we've got to do a third lease to get this. And again, this has been an issue that it was brought to our attention over the last year about the elevator access for this building. I think he has some small businesses up there already, and so that's been an issue from the fire department and et cetera, like that there's no access, there's no handicap accessibility. So yes, absolutely, would be better, but I think for this particular grant, the city had to have a vested interest. And we at that time when we applied, we knew we had the money through the mass gaming grant. It was just then Holyoke Art said, oh, we can start, before this grant opportunity came about, they were already planning on paying December, January, and onward, and would have done their own lease until this came up. So that I think so that's where it was like, oh, how come the owner of that property has been talking about the elevator access for a long time. We've gotten calls from the small businesses that are up there asking for help from the state, and the city doesn't have money to help that. We don't have money to help that kind of situation. And then this grant came up. It was like, oh, we can line this up with this request.
Now, NOAA, in one of the email exchanges from the state, said that the partner organization could have been on the lease, that would have been sufficient to qualify for the ownership interest.
Okay, I missed that one. Okay, so for the
No.
yeah, I don't know.
I can tell you.
I don't think that's, yeah.
if I may, Kevin, I can tell you that what I was looking from, it was the actual award letter that indicated that we had to have an interest. And the way I looked at it, I think it was like undistributable interest. And I'm thinking that means that we have to have the whole building. So then there was a discussion, oh my God, what, we have to buy the building now? That really wasn't something we were looking to do. And when I indicated to this gentleman, and of course my focus was, look, we don't have that. And I thought it was an issue. He said, no, I think because you have the email. No, the city just has to have an interest in it. And we had to fix that. We had to do that. So we really couldn't get away from that. If what you're saying is, and I'm not sure about this, quite frankly, we should be adding Holyoke Art to the lease that's currently before you? Is that what you're thinking?
My preference, and I agree with everything you said, by the way, but my preference would be that it's just in Holyoke Art's name. And what I'm referring to is the August 29th email from Noah, where he makes the following statement. Our language that requires title or undistributable possession of the site, as long as the city can show us that the artery project has control of the premises that Aaron describes, whether through a city lease or through some other partner organization's lease, I think it's fine for our purposes. And we can modify the contract language if need be. So I guess my question is, why don't we do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Aaron, if I may, when did Holyoke Art, their interest come about? Did it come about when this grant came about, or was it after the fact?
I don't really know if I understand. I mean,
Because you said they started paying in December, so did their interest, were they involved like, say, September, when this
they've been
first-
involved from day one as the vendor. I mean, they've been involved from day one as the people who were running the shop. Right, they've been running.
Holyoke Art?
But Holyoke Art didn't exist. Didn't exist.
That's what I'm saying.
So the print shop staffed the artery. The print shop, then with some other partners, became a nonprofit last year, became Holyoke Art. And it was planned that they would take over the lease. They would take over the lease in November, or when our lease was going to end, September. But whenever our lease was going to end, they were going to take it up. But we had more. There was leftover funding from the redo grant to keep paying the rent. So it was like, okay, we'll just keep using that grant. That was for. It was already been allocated to pay that rent.
Is it true to say that we need this grant to pay the rent for this lease?
No, there's nothing to do with rent. No, there's nothing to do. There's no more. It's all for the elevator.
That's what I want to make sure.
Yeah, it's all for the elevator, and I think it's a match. It doesn't even pay for the whole elevator. I think it's the elevator.
50%.
Yeah, no match.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, right, no match, and it's only
All right.
partial funding of that.
All right, then, Kevin, I don't think, and maybe it is better, I don't think there's an issue, having said that if we turn this over to Holyoke Art, because none of the grant monies that we're talking about are gonna be used to pay the rent.
Mm-hmm.
And, given, what you indicated about Noah's comment, which quite frankly, I wasn't even aware that there was this Holyoke Art at the time that I received that email. So, to answer your question, yes, I think we can make it with Holyoke Art and move from there. So you probably need an amended lease to approve.
Okay. So, I'm sure there's other questions. I guess I'll leave it there for the moment. I do have a couple others, but I want to stop, so in case anybody else has other questions.
Counselor Bartley?
I do, yeah, thank you. It's always to the chair. First off, to Attorney Degnan. Attorney Degnan, would you explain to me again your reasoning for not, other than it was a mistake, but for not having this lease pre-approved by the city council pursuant to the ordinance? I thought I heard you say the grant didn't specifically exclude that, but I need to hear that explained.
No, it's not the grant that didn't exclude it. I said that I looked at the ordinance, and the ordinance, see, we wanted to put them together to be approved together.
No, just
because-
explain the reason why, if you would, why city council was
Because
not
I don't
involved.
believe section 2-336 says that we can't attach anything else, that it has to be separate, okay? I never said that the lease doesn't have to be approved by city council, it does, when we put it together. What I don't think it needs to be is separate. The only reason I mentioned that we won't do it again is because of the amount of confusion that it caused. So, please, I'm not saying that I thought that it didn't need to be approved, it did. I just figured that if we, because the ordinance doesn't prohibit attaching other documents to a lease, that we could do it this way. But it seems to me that it has created an awful lot of confusion, and we certainly don't want to do that. That wasn't the intent. So we won't do that anymore.
Well, that's
That was
good,
my
that's
explanation.
good news, but you're saying to me that because the ordinance doesn't specifically exclude having these things linked together, that you think that this is a valid lease, even though the city council has not, even though you and the city of Holyoke has not complied with the ordinance?
I'm saying it has complied because it was attached and the vote was taken on the grant package, okay? That's what
Where's
happened.
the affirmative language that approves that? Because there should be affirmative, you're counting that as an exclusion. I'm saying that it should be a affirmative language to that effect.
Then, Counselor, what you need to do is change the ordinance, because it doesn't say that. So if you want to make it, change the ordinance to say that all leases must be voted on separately, then obviously we'll do that. But it doesn't say that now. So there isn't any language in there that, it just doesn't say it, it's non-existent. Now, it can change if you want it to, and I wouldn't have an issue with that, but at present, it doesn't.
When on recommendation of the mayor, the city council by 2/3 vote determines that it is in the best interest of the city to acquire interest in real property, the mayor shall direct the city solicitor to lease, buy, or otherwise acquire real property in a manner consistent with Massachusetts law. It says it right there. The mayor, the city council by 2/3. I just, you're backing into that. I strongly disagree with that legal analysis. Let me just move on. The recipient in the contract is the city of Holyoke. What is the city of Holyoke's connection with Holyoke Art, Inc.? Because I believe that is the tenant, the actual tenant over there. Is Holyoke Art a city department?
No.
So it's not a city department.
No, it's 5-1 separate.
It's a private nonprofit, Aaron.
Yes.
So how is it that the city of Holyoke is a grant recipient for this? We're doing it on behalf of an entity that is not related to the city of Holyoke, and ultimately, I hope you all know this, is for the benefit of a private building owner. There's no benefit to the city of Holyoke. Let's not pretend that that's the case. That is not the case. It is for the direct benefit of a private party. We're getting a public grant by the city of Holyoke, using as a linchpin a private nonprofit to get the grant, and then the grant monies are being used, public monies are being used for a private individual. Now, I hope that elevator doesn't crack and nobody gets hurt. Attorney Degnan, I don't even see how this is even legitimate based upon the facts as I just laid them out, and I believe they are facts. I'll give you the whole thing about not city council. I'll give it to you about not approving the lease. What is happening, Attorney Degnan, is that the city of Holyoke, right on that contract, is the grant recipient. But we're not really the recipient. What we've been saying the whole time is Holyoke Art, Inc. is the recipient. Well, they're not affiliated with the city of Holyoke. Hold on. They're a 501c3 private nonprofit. And ultimately, the check's going to go from Mr. Bosco's building to fix his elevator. You're telling me that this is legitimate?
I can understand your concern because, Councilor Bartley, that was my first concern. It's like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right that we're getting these grants and it's going to be helping a public entity, a private entity. But when I looked through the award letter, which is the first thing I did, and when I was told that, hey, look, you don't have to lease it all, you can actually take this space and use this grant for that. I mean, it is an economic development project So it was through the grant, not the agreement, it's through the grant, the requirements and through the award letter that I looked through, that I agree with you. It's a very unusual project. I have not seen anything like it before. But if the people at the state say that this is okay to use, then I didn't step in their way. But you can see from the emails, or maybe you don't have them, I don't know. You can see from the emails, they were like, well, what's Attorney Degner's problem? Why is she making this difficult? I say, I'm not making it difficult. I'm simply trying to comply with the terms. And that's when they said, no, as long as we have a least interest. And now Kevin, Councilor Jordan, pointed to another part where this guy, Noah, indicated, no, you can also go in with a third party. So it's unusual. I can understand your confusion. But the state indicates that this setup is okay. So it's okay. I wasn't going to tell them that they don't know how to handle the grants.
And that's in writing, and that's an addendum to the lease somewhere that I don't have?
It's the award letter. I don't know, Aaron, I don't know if the award letter was attached or not. I can certainly give it to you, but I don't know if it was attached.
Counselor Degan, maybe you could get that to us for our Tuesday meeting?
Yeah, I can get.
Okay.
So we can vote on this tonight, and then with that,
Okay.
how does that sound?
Yeah.
What is this?
Okay,
Can I ask, I do a couple?
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Devine.
If I could just
Sure.
say one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, we're doing two separate meetings, one from the 17th and one from the 31st, because of the closing of the building. That's why this has been taking so long. So I apologize. I was trying to put orders together, like all police stuff together, all this together, all that. So in the future, I think what, if the committee approves, is have people come in on a staggered basis, so you're not sitting here all night long, okay? So just wanted to apologize for that and explain that. So Counselor Jordan.
Yeah, it's a great suggestion, by the way. The other reason I'd like the city's name off of this one is due to the fact that I really don't like having the city's name as a lessor of something that we're actually not really using. It creates more premises liability to us too, right? Somebody gets injured, somebody gets hurt, God forbid, there's a fire. Who are they looking? The tenant is going to look to recourse to us, right? If something happens over there, somebody slips and falls, all these different things, because we're the actual premises holder. So the people that are actually using it and can use it, I really think are appropriate. The only thing I will say to Attorney Dignan, who I have a lot of respect for, is there really is no debate on the third lease. There hasn't been any votes on the grant or the lease in terms of any approvals. This one's totally swinging in the wind, the third one, because that got signed without benefit of any votes of any form, of any kind. So, in fact, it's sitting here right now. That's why we're having this discussion. The problem is, it seems to me this should have happened back in August, September of last year when this all started. But nevertheless, I guess I'll stop there. The only other question I will ask, because it was mentioned to me from a concerned citizen, was, is there anyone in your office in any way affiliated with Holyoke Art as an officer or a director or on any board or any of that? Is there any affiliation whatsoever? Yep. Oh, I hear Jennifer. Okay. So, if I may, since that's apparently true, I would just say, as you're the boss over in that department, are you at all concerned that you appointed someone to be as it says in the email, the point person on this grant, and that is the main contact, is the main everything, and is serving on the board that is the recipient of the grant that they're lobbying for on behalf of the city? Do you think that's a potential 2-69 ordinance issue and/or a state ethics 268A issue? Because it doesn't require you to be paid or unpaid as a board of directors. We've already had legal opinions on that in the past. Right. I'm just saying, be careful with that, because if you're on the board of an organization that you're working here full-time seeking grants for in our name, that's you better look into that.
Yep, absolutely. And a lot of it is timing, and again, I think that up until tonight, I almost wish we didn't even mention Hoyok Art, because really they weren't responsible for this. We applied for the grant as the city, had the money to pay the rent for 6 more months, and, then I think that, because Hoyok Art is not named at anything right now. They're taking it over on March 1st. So I think that's adding another level of confusion, but it's insured, the place has insurance, so it's fully insured. But I think that this is,
Aaron?
Excuse me, Counselor Bartley, if you're leaving, you have an order coming up?
Aaron?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Is, just out of curiosity, is Holyoke Art, is that Holyoke Art, did I hear you say LLC? Are they actually a corporation?
They're a 501c3. They're a nonprofit
They were.
organization. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
I'm not even sure when they got incorporated. Yeah, so it was in tandem with this, but again, we knew they were taking the lease over at some point, thinking it was earlier than March until this opportunity came up. But I understand the scene there. We'll check into that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if everybody's all set, I'll entertain a motion to accept the grant.
I'll make a motion that it be denied, Madam Chair, on the basis that I think we should have this, either they should regroup, have the lease change to go through Holyoke Art, look into all the issues that were raised here, replay the tape for the last 45 minutes and go through all this stuff. Make sure that the city statute was followed, state procurement was followed, the disclosure rules around the grant, conflict of interest rules, all this stuff I think should be raised. And then if after they had an opportunity to reflect on all of that and come back to us, we'd be open to that perhaps.
If I can make a suggestion, instead of denying the grant, could we table it?
Yes, I would be supportive of that.
That's what I was going to say, second.
Okay. All right. So all those, Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Devine? Yes. Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio?
Yes.
And Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Okay, so this is tabled, Aaron, till you can get that information, and perhaps Counselor Jordan, if you want to listen to the last 45 minutes again, or if you want, perhaps you and Counselor Jordan could get together to
Anytime, always
figure out
available.
exactly what we need to approve this.
No, I think we know, and I think we're going to probably let it go. But that's okay. So we'll work with Hoyok Art to see what they're at. I think that this one, we don't have the time frame to probably do this. So just for clarity, and then I don't know if I can make a comment on a previous order, but my comment here, just for clarity's sake, not that I'm going to get in any leases ever again. I will be getting grants, but not leases. You're saying I need to come to the city council to entertain a lease before I have any agreements, before I have the money? See, this is how can I get into a lease agreement if I don't have the funding? How can I get the funding? So you're saying I want to come to you and say, I'm thinking about putting out an RFP for a lease?
Yeah.
Okay.
My understanding is the mayor has to sign it, and then that has to be brought before the council with 2/3 vote of the council.
Before it goes out to RFP, before we
Right.
have a lease.
Right.
And then you seek actual bidders to say, we would like to
did that.
lease property and
We
do
that.
this,
We do
this,
that.
this.
We understand. We got
And
that
then all
process.
the bids come back and the mayor has to pick one and
No,
he
the mayor
makes a
does not pick one.
recommendation.
We have a review committee. We
Okay,
know
beautiful.
with that part. Yeah, we know that
Yep,
part.
that sounds good.
All right,
We're on the
so,
same page.
We'll table it until
You let us know.
you let us know, and Counselor Jordan will let us know, and
Sounds
we'll
good.
bring that right up, as soon as possible.
Thank you so
And again, I thank you all for coming tonight and staying in, and do you have another?
I was just going to say, get that done, and we'll do it in 45 seconds instead of 45
Well,
minutes.
there's two different, it's not gonna happen. So, which is okay. Can I make a comment on a previous order or no, because it was closed?
Which previous order?
It was the one that was given, was Councilor Rivera's order. It was given complied with on the
yeah.
impact fees. So just, if you as I've said to all of you, door's always open. If we can have a conversation about impact fees before orders are filed, I think the law department would appreciate it.
Okay.
Just, I don't want to get into it too deep, but there's a lot of moving parts.
Okay.
Yeah, because.
So the more we talk in public, the more
Got
That's
it.
our position.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate that advice. I'll hold off on that order.
Happy to talk to you about it offline, and we'll find order once we get some things.
Sounds
Fine.
good.
Perfect.
Sounds
Thank you.
good. Thank you all very much. Okay, just a couple more and we're done. All right.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you. Okay, well, the ambulance, we're gonna take that up right now, okay? Okay. Yeah, I know that, everybody is, because we've had so this is, and then the Mass DOT is next. Okay, so this is an order filed by Counselor Devine, order that there be and hereby appropriated by transfer fiscal year 2024, $20,000 as follows. $20,000 from capital stabilization and to contracted services, Mayor ambulance feasibility study, $20,000. And again, Mayor and everybody else, I apologize that this took so long, and DPW, you are next, I promise. What? What? There you go. Okay, who wants to start? And Chief Catalebit says, of course, as well.
Oh, by the way, I should tell our new chair that the old chair had a rule that if you went last at one meeting, you'd get to go first at a future. So it's sort of, to be fair, just thought I'd share that from Councilor McGivern.
Okay,
So if
all
he
right.
ends up being last, he gets to go first at
Okay,
a future.
I have no problem with that whatsoever.
I
Bad
can
time to
speak
tell
briefly
me.
about
But-
future reference.
Yeah, for future. Okay, who would like to talk on this?
I can speak briefly about this. I'm
Okay.
not sure if Chief Catalettis is still online, and I can turn
Yeah,
it
he
over
is.
to him. But we went out to RFP looking for a firm to
I think he is, I don't see him.
do a ambulance feasibility study. Looking about making our ambulance a department of Holyoke and what that would look like. Many other communities do that, so we went out to RFP. We had 3 submitters, and the mayor was pretty transparent where he just picked a number. He thought the study would be, he picked 50 grand. And when the RFP came back, it was a little bit more expensive. We had 3 submitters. The least qualified was 50 grand, but they have never done a study like this before. And for us, we went with the middle one, Fitch and Associates, who.
What was
came
that
back-
again?
Fitch and
Fitch and-
Associates
okay.
is who the committee found most advantageous. And Carl Cameron from Holyoke Health Center, Chief Catalettis, Deputy Chief Mark Fortin, they were all the review committee, and Christopher Norris, who is East Hampton. He's, I think, the head of the EMT department. Chief, what is Christopher Norris's role in East Hampton?
He's the fire chief in East Hampton. He also sits on he chairs the ambulance committee for FCAM, the Fire Chiefs Association of Massachusetts, and he also chairs it for our Western Mass organization.
So we did a full-blown RFP. These were the 3 submitters. The review committee reviewed it and made the recommendation to the mayor that we would like to move forward and hire Fitch and Associates to do the study. However, we were, we only have 50,000, so we're asking for another 20,000 to support the study.
Okay, so this 20,000 that we're talking about is in addition to what you've already had?
Correct.
Okay.
We already have the 50
We
that the council
we
had
gave him 50
previously
last year,
approved.
Oh, I
but
see.
it came back at 70.
All right,
Yeah, the 50,000 was part of a series of different, how we were committing available free cash at that time. And so the 50,000, was supported to go forward with this ambulance, but obviously, as you learned, there's a difference of 20,000 more that they need. And assuming we want to continue to support this exploratory process, that's what the committee needs to move forward in order for me to get into any contract.
I think it's certainly a good idea to do that. Having, during my union days, I actually represented AMR.
Oh, did you?
I did, for
yeah, I
several
think you
years,
told
so
me. Yeah.
I do think it's a very good idea. I do think it's, there's a lot to be learned about it, but it could be profitable for the city. And if you use the fire department as well, that's a no-brainer.
What's interesting about this one, and we talked about this the last time when we first came looking for the 50,000, it's been talked about for a very long time, before me and with you guys that are
Oh, I
that were here
remember.
longer than me. And I remember when I was on the fire commission, and it was just then the minute I became mayor, hey, ambulance. And so obviously the best thing to do with anything is to explore it thoroughly. And I'm not saying just this group explore it or that group explore it. We're very thoughtful on who serves on this committee. The union membership is on that committee as well, working together with our procurement officer, trying to learn and explore this together. And for them to, I stay away out of all the meetings just so that I can, as much as possible, not give any inclination of politics being involved in the process. And it's neat because they're understanding the procurement. They're looking at these different companies that do this, coming to a consensus on who would be best into helping with this. And then once that company is secured, assuming we move forward, being able to work with them as the core working group with the consultant through that whole process and get us that final tangible document that allow us to review and, understand if whether or not it's even feasible, and if it is, come up with the next steps after that, and how we transition into such an option.
And I was a fire commissioner with you, and I'm going to lose the train of thought. I was a and every new firefighter had to have his EMT, his or her EMT, emergency management technician. Is that it? They're EMTs, they're paramedics, and intermediates. Okay, so that was one of the requirements that they get that. So I think, depending on what happened, they're already a step ahead of where they need to be. So, anybody else?
I just had a quick.
Yes.
Strong, as you know, Mayor, I've already said, as I did last year, and I told this to the fire chief when him and I talked about this in his office, was very strongly in support of studying this. It's been a number of years since we did the ambulance check to see if we could have a city-run ambulance and if this is in the best interest of citizens. So totally on board. Just had one question. The 20 grand. I see you're taking from capital stabilization. Just have to ask, there's no money available, Chief or Mayor, in the fire department budget. As you know, we're doing our best to kind of keep the stabilization money intact, not knowing, where things are going with the budget for next year and all that's involved. Just wanted to ask before we, if we have to approve it from this fund, but is there 20 grand available in the fire department anywhere to pay for this?
I don't have 20 grand to pay for this, Counselor.
Okay, there's not, you don't think you might have a little extra in the overtime account or any other area that you think we could, looks like it's, let's put it this way, at the end of the year, is it possible, if you don't have the money now, as you go through the year and you identify 20, is it possible we could do a transfer back into the stabilization to cover this? I know we're only six or 7 months into the fiscal year, but.
That's an interesting, though, so there will be monies, put into that capital stabilization so we can not only potentially put things that we've used, but to grow it even further.
Right.
The current budget, however, considering and just working with Tanya and looking at different things that we're forecasting out, whether if it's utilities or something underfunded somewhere, we really want to preserve what we have so that when we get to year end, we can close any perceived or potential deficits there might be. So this capital stabilization offers a great deal of flexibility, but we can do a commitment to make sure that we put 20 grand back in there. If that's,
That would be nice if the fiscal year allows it at the end. I'd like to, if we can put it back at, seeing how the year goes. The fire department historically has turned money back at the end of the year generally, at least if I've seen at least some years, 200 grand, 250 grand, back. So I know ultimately a lot of that goes to free cash, but it may or may not make its way to stabilization. But I would just ask if you can do that, that would be awfully nice.
Oh, sounds good.
Awfully nice. That was nice.
There you go.
Okay, so do I hear any other questions or concerns? And if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Okay, Sullivan?
Yes.
Devine, yes. Jordan?
Yes.
Ocasio?
Yes.
And Givner?
Yes.
Okay, 5-0. Thank you very much. We're getting there.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
both for coming and staying so long. And there's one really quick item. Come on in, Carl. This is item 14 by Maldonado Velez. Order that all city departments work towards creating digital access to all their forms, permits, and licenses to streamline access and reduce paperwork. Send a copy to all department heads and request an update to the Finance Committee with any expenses we would acquire in order to make this transition happen. I believe this should be sent to the mayor. All right. Because this is not something I don't think the city council can ask department heads for.
We can offer an update or something if.
Okay, so I'll refer it to you, to the mayor, and, oh, you can do it now?
Yeah, we can give an update.
Oh, go for it. Thank you.
So that's currently what we're doing here in the city
Okay.
is, we just recently upgraded our ERP software, Munis, to, a current version. We were on the same version for 20 years. We're on the most current version now. And with that new Munis upgrade, it is gonna allow us to go paperless. We're currently doing the big scanning project to get all our documents digital. And it's gonna help everybody. It's gonna help the public access. It's gonna allow us to be more efficient and faster. And, we think, you know, as we go down through this, it's going to help open up positions. You know,
Yeah.
employees will have less work to
Yeah.
do with this paperless system. So I think we're doing all of that right now.
Okay.
It'll create space too, get rid of some of those filing cabinets. We got
Dust.
paper all over the place.
Cleaner air.
So,
Also, we
yes.
have that new program Unicity also, that a lot of our permitting is going through that. I know DPW does it for road opening permits. The health department's also using it.
And so is the building department,
So is
all
the
three
building
of
department.
those.
So we're already, been working towards
Great.
that
Thank you.
before the order was started.
okay.
And actually, we're working on the data too, that all our departments talk to each other.
Right.
So we're doing all of that.
Thank you all very much. So I'll make a motion that that's been complied, or you make a motion that that's been complied with?
Can I do one
Yes,
brief
yes.
comment? Yes, I just wanted to encourage what you're doing and thank you because it's so helpful. I get a lot of compliments from citizens about things being on the website, you know, use that sort of ease of use of, hey, here's the form and I can kind of have it ready to go before I go to different places or if I'm a business and doing these, as much of that user-friendly stuff as we can do is really, really appreciated by a lot of people.
Yeah.
So yeah, make a motion, this has been complied with.
Okay, Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Devine, yes. Jordan?
Yes.
Ocasio?
Yes.
And Givner?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate all your work. We're going to take up the DPW now.
I think we have a grant, what, number 9 maybe for him?
Let's
That's
see.
number 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Number 9
is-
and number 11.
Okay, yep. Is that the mitigation? Yes, okay. So this is introduced by Counselor Devine. Ordered that in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, the City Council hereby accepts the provisions of the 2023 Community Mitigation Fund Transportation Planning Grant, $82,300, no match, grant and authorizes the establishment of the fund and other method appropriate for the accounting of the receipts and expenditures for all resources associated with the administration of said grant. Will we take it off the table?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a grant that Chris Baker, the previous city engineer, applied for through the Community Mitigation Fund. And it's for the sole purpose of proposing a complete street redesign for Main Street from Jackson Street to Mosier Street. And the city was requesting funding from the Community Mitigation Fund to perform the initial engineering design work, to prepare documents in support of the project, obtaining construction funding under the state's Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP, so.
And you said from Jackson Street up to Locust?
From Jackson Street up to Mosier Street.
Mosier Street, okay, that's over, I think.
Pardon?
Is that over Mosier Street? Not up. I had heard Locust.
Oh.
That's why I got confused. So from Jackson to Mosier, okay.
Jackson to Mosier.
And that's for street work?
Didn't even realize Mosier was on.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Is it Mosier in the Flats?
Yeah.
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 I didn't even realize Mosier, or is it that No, because it's, what, Lower Dwight Street would be kind of even with Mosier, or?
So it,
Or
I
is,
believe it's where it crosses under the bridge.
oh, the little
Yeah,
bridge
yeah.
there, that's
By
technically
the,
Mosier?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Next to the Rosary Towers and
Yes,
that area?
yes.
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
okay, so any questions?
I'm sorry, what was, they're gonna do some planning or redesign? Like, what's the ultimate game plan if like, we're,
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So, you know, you're familiar with the TIP program, right? The Transportation Improvement Program.
A little
When
bit.
we're on that list,
little bit,
it's,
yeah.
it's funding that comes from the Federal Highway Administration. And the way it makes its way to cities and towns, there are these consortiums of governments managed by their metropolitan planning organization. So ours is Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. And you know, I have a seat on that board. I go to all the meetings. When you get a project on the TIP list, it takes about 10, 15 years for it to come to fruition, where you reach a construction phase. So I think what Chris is trying to do here is start the planning so we can get it, so that we support the project that that Chris was able to get on the TIP list, and that's the Main Street corridor. It's the same funding source where, you know, I think you've heard us announce a little bit about the High and Maple project.
right.
Where you know, the anticipated timeline for that implementation is in 4 years. Same kind of process, funding strategy that this is looking to support, so we can continue to advance that project on that list.
Okay, any questions? No? I make a,
Motion that it be approved.
okay, all those, sorry, Sullivan,
Yes.
Devine, yes, Jordan, yes?
Yes.
Sorry. Ocasio?
Yes.
And Givner?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mayor and Carl. And we just have two more to go, one for the DPW and the other is the ballot question. Okay, so this was Counselor Bartley, ordered in light of the recent announcement of Holyoke's allocation from the state of nearly $500,000 in tax appropriation for its infrastructure. The mayor and the DPW superintendent provide a plan on how to use the funds for this fiscal year. So the public is aware, please see agenda item number 8 from 1/2/24 meeting, fair share amendment. Okay, motion to take it off the table?
Should we take 12 also?
12, which is,
The letter from the state for the fair share amendment?
yeah, I've got that. This one right here from Mass DOT, yep. Do you want me to read it? Or I can just read, what I can read is, the letter from Mass DOT certifies that your community's fair share apportionment for fiscal year 2024 is $473,823. And that's signed by Maura Healy, the governor, and Kim Driscoll, lieutenant governor.
Great.
So just to, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So that, through the fair share, basically what they're doing with that, how would you say it, apportionment?
Yeah, I have trouble with that too.
Apportionment, it's adding on top of what we already collect in our Chapter 90, so it's being absorbed through the Chapter 90 program. So whatever we collect plus an additional 400 plus
Great.
is in our allotment.
Okay, great. And is that what you gave us before?
Yes.
Okay.
So
And-
Chapter 90 money can only be used for roadway work.
Right, right. And Jeffrey, if you could, before Tuesday's meeting, if you haven't done it already, if you could have every counselor get a copy of the streets that are going to be done. Okay. Okay, Jeff, can you do that by our next meeting on city council? I'll make a note to,
Okay.
okay. So that's added to the chapter. What did he say?
I couldn't quite make
I couldn't quite hear you, Jeff.
I emailed that out to everybody today.
Oh, he's gonna email it out to everybody.
Oh, thank you, okay.
No, I already did.
Oh, okay. That's right, because you had emailed it to me and that there was a correction.
Patty, I had one question if I could.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Carl, you're probably going to start getting counselors filing orders around, but I did notice some good news on a couple spots on Northampton Street. Potholes, I'm sure your phone must be lighting up about potholes, Mayor. And since we're talking roads, and this is obviously glamorous, beautiful new roads, I know traditionally we try to wait it out in the winter, and when spring comes.
What we do now is put cold patch down.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to ask.
Our crews are out. We're out today.
I've seen them.
Thank you.
The only issue is you got to remember if it's snowing or if it's raining, we don't do that kind of work,
course.
and it's bad weather for the past 2 weeks.
Right. So, so obviously this is in the forefront of your thoughts. We
Correct.
can tell constituents, because I don't know about other counselors, but I am starting to get a fair number of phone calls saying, Kevin, have you, of course I drive down, like I'm sure most people, Northampton Street every day, or West Franklin Street or Beach Street, these different main thoroughfares, and it's, wow, there is a number of potholes throughout, and cold patching those would, at least until we can, really do whatever we're going to do for a better job in the warmer weather. That's appreciated. So we don't have too many people going, really getting their cars damaged.
Correct.
All right.
I had a question.
Oh, okay. Patty, Carmen had a question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Carmen.
I
Councilor
had a question.
Ocasio, go
I
ahead.
had a question for Carl.
Yeah.
I called DPW office today because on Sergeant, going down Sergeant between the East Street and South Bridge Street and there's Sergeant. There's a lot there on the side that is fenced up, but the branches are coming right through the fence. And I started doing the walking school bus with Morgan School, and we come from Commercial Street straight down on that side, and then we had to push the branches to the side so the kids can cross and go by instead of putting them on the street to cross over and then cross back again. It's just that block right there. That
It's a
needs-
city lot? Is it a city tree? That's what I
No,
need.
I think the trees inside
A lot?
and the branches are coming straight out into the sidewalk.
Do you know if it's a city lot? You
No, I don't know.
Because if it's
We
a
could
city
look-
lot, we
we'd-
could
we
take
could look
care
it
of
up
it.
if you had
it's-
the address.
If it's a private lot, we would have to notify the property owner to do it.
Trim the branches.
Trim the branches back, yes. Okay?
Yeah, because that's just totally empty. It's
Call me tomorrow, all right, and I'll take a look at it.
Okay. I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan, you had a comment?
Yeah, so just for the public to comply with Councilor Bartley's order, what he asked for was to provide a plan on how the funds were going to be used. The DPW director has supplied us with a list. That's what will be available at the next council meeting.
Yep.
But basically for the public, what's happened is we had a little over $1.5 million in Chapter 90 funds to do road work, repaving, resurfacing, and we now have $2 million, and we'll be able to do incrementally more work going forward. So that's the good news.
Okay.
I did want to bring something up to you guys. So, blah, blah, blah. So, as you know, these streets are coming up from the pavement management plan that, that they maintain. I think soon they're going to have to go around and rate the conditions of the road again and just make sure that the last time we rated them, that the ordered priority they're in is in accordance to the conditions that they're in today. But I did ask Carl if we were able to do another $1 million worth of roads, what roads those would be, and that's this list right here. Is it this list? The light blue area?
Second page, last table.
And so just to keep in our radar, go and check out the roads and see them for yourselves and whatnot. And If we do happen to get to a point where we do have an extremely healthy level of free cash that's certified and we can stretch more road improvement this year than what we're already planning, I want to bring that in front of the council and see if there's appetite there. So I asked them to put it on a sheet here so you could see it, check it out, and if it's anything that you agree with and we can do it, it's something that I'd like to bring in front of the council and see if we can go forward with stretching that work as much road work as possible in '24.
Okay. Counselor Sullivan?
Yeah, and just one more quick comment. I think as everybody's heard me mentioning over the years now, with our existing aging infrastructure in the city, we stress a lot on sewers, water mains, and stuff. But the same's true of our road work, our sidewalks, everything else involved with climate change, right? I can remember, just 20 years ago, the ground froze in November, and it thawed out in the spring. We're going through more freeze-thaw cycles as a result of climate change. So we're going to need to spend more resources and prepare for this in the future than we ever did in the past. So.
Yes.
One more note. If anybody mentions Lincoln Street not being on the list, we know it's bad. Apparently there's utility work plan, and so we didn't want to, touch it until that work has been complete. So if anybody asks you
about Lincoln,
that's
the same
what's
thing.
going on.
If you notice, the Bemis Road also is on the
Yeah,
list.
you
We've
had-
removed
yeah.
from what we had planned for this year because there's the sewer separation work that's going to be coming in a couple of years, and HG&E is doing work. And this is like a working document because it's fluid because we're meeting next week with Holyoke Water and Holyoke Gas and Electric to make sure they don't have any main work that has to be done prior to us paving the road.
Okay. Thank you.
I was glad to see about the Bemis speed humps put in here. Neighbors there will be thrilled, I think, overall. They've signed a petition and very much in support of having, especially now if we redo the road, then the people will even be more interested in some of the folks that go fast on that road. But what I wanted to bring up was, so I see Bemis speed humps around here. If we have a backlog of speed hump requests, and obviously I see this one's $40,000, but maybe some of that, cleaning out some of that backlog if we do go with this extra $1 million or whatever it might be, because a lot of folks have put in these petitions, they've been passed, and I'm sure you have a queue now of once we can get the money type of situation.
Well,
that might be something to consider.
Yes, definitely. But the question was before that, there was a perception that we couldn't use Chapter 90 money for speed humps. But after talking to Mass DOT, they said we can use it for speed humps, not for speed bumps.
Okay, speed humps, all right.
Okay.
All right.
Anybody else? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to pass the grant.
Let's see.
Here.
Did we already take the vote on 9? Or this is the one on 11, right?
This is the one on Counselor Bartley's.
Motion that the order's been complied with.
Yeah, I don't
Okay,
think,
all right.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think we,
thank you.
yeah. So
Okay.
item
Okay.
11 and 12 have been received and complied
Complied
with.
with, okay, and Counselor Sullivan.
Yes or no?
Oh, yes. I'll tell you what, I'll give you another one.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Jordan.
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio.
Not here. Yes.
And Counselor Givner.
Yes.
Okay, great. 5-0. Thank you. And I think the only thing left is the,
At the end of the show, just our complied withs?
no,
We have,
Carl, before you leave, I had filed an order about 88 Jarvis to make a bigger sign for no parking.
Okay.
Kevin's aware of it as well.
Yeah,
And then,
a mutual friend.
as you're coming towards Donovan's, before you get to 88 Jarvis, there's I don't know if it's a speed limit sign or what it is, but that's where I wanted the second order, that blind driveway ahead. or something like that I filed. So just to, excuse me,
I
let
saw
you
the
know.
order.
Yeah, I figured
got
you
it.
did, but I want to kind of tell you where it was at.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, and again, I apologize for
No worries.
the lateness.
Kevin, is 17,
Yeah, that's what we're gonna take up next, right?
that's Carl?
Sure.
Carl, we can do it without him, because we've got.
I think
here.
I think that one's going to stay tabled as we
Right.
right because I think they need more time. That was the one about meter revenue
Yeah,
and
you-
all of that. The garage.
We can do this without you.
Yeah.
Got everything here.
Yeah, I just want to let you know about that.
Oh.
I have to find the data, obviously, because that's something like from 22 was the order, 2022, and you asked for pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, so I have
Right.
to research the records. But also, we have a parking study that's just been completed that's also going to be presented. also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll table it
yeah.
until you.
When
get
you're
some
ready,
information.
just let us know.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
so a motion to table item 17.
Yep. So
Okay,
moved.
so moved. Okay. And now the only thing left, I believe, is,
16.
that's your, yes, and
15.
Oh, 15 and
15,
16.
yeah, that's
Maybe we'll do 15's an easy one.
Yeah, 15, Counselor Jordan, Puello, Bacon, ordered that the Finance Committee review the FY '22 budget impact as well as school building financial analysis, impact of the assessor's decision to lower the Hoyok Mall's assessment by an additional $36 million. This has been complied with. It's an old order that was in the jacket that I wanted to take up, so.
Motion to be complied with.
Okay, Counselor Sullivan,
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. I was waiting for me to say it. Counselor Jordan.
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio.
Yes.
And Counselor Givner.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now the only one left is the order by Counselor Vacan, Jordan, and Puello, ordered that the ballot question approved by the City Council be placed on the ballot on November 4th, 2024, as referenced in the 9/26/23 decision by Judge Mulqueen. And I'd open it up for discussion.
Yeah, I see Counselor Vacan's here. Probably, she was the main author of this, so I
Okay.
would defer to her if she wants to weigh in.
Counselor Vacan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in light of all the discussions that we've had, I am hoping we don't need to revisit all of them tonight. But as part of my order, I included the legal form that had been provided to us from our legal department. And my hope is that the committee will recommend it out to be placed on the next ballot.
Okay, and just a quick question. Is this going to be written up? I'm trying to say it the right way. It's hard to read, so hopefully it'll be written up in a language that doesn't go all the way back and forth like this, like it's on here on the order.
Oh, well, I'm not sure how it's appearing on what you're looking at right now. I'm just looking at my phone.
Okay.
But we had been provided the language on a single 8.5 by 11 sheet.
Okay.
And it was quite readable at the time.
Okay.
And I know that Jeffrey has that information for the council. It's the exact language that was voted out of council last year.
Okay. Yeah, what it says, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was just going to say, the state mandates what the language be, so you pretty much don't have much flexibility in it, and I believe Kathy used the language from the first time it was adopted in 2016. Kathy's here, but maybe she can speak to it, but I believe that's the case, Kathy, right? You just pretty much copied it.
Let me add some new information. I'm going to advise that the language we have here be placed on the ballot. Because first of all, we want to be consistent. And there was a concern about the original acceptance. And I did a little bit of research. I mean, there's no case law on this stuff, really. There really isn't much to look at, except, Kevin, I know how much you know about the Department of Revenue, so you'll probably understand what I'm getting at. Whenever a municipality accepts the Community Preservation Act, one of the things that the city clerk has to do is to fill out what's called a notice of acceptance. which gives all the information, the rate, everything, and the exemptions, and attached to it has to be the certified ballot. You have to have a copy of the certified ballot. So that goes off to the state. And the state is really the gatekeeper with respect to these particular funds. I mean, we have to file forms every year, telling, about how the exemptions are being applied. And if it were going to be flagged, I think it would have been. I think the department, once they got this, they would have said, hey, hold it, there's something wrong here. They didn't do that. And I think the reason why they didn't do that is because they didn't want to overrule what the voters had said. The voters wanted it. So, and particularly given that there's one part of the statute which allows the petitioners, the residents of a city can put this on the ballot too. So I think that they did not do anything about this. So I believe that the CPA exists in Holyoke. And for purposes of consistency, I think we should just keep the language that Councilor Bacon and Councilor Jordan have indicated, and take that language and put it on the ballot.
Okay.
And vote once. I know there's a discussion, we had to vote twice. Vote once, vote the way we did the first time.
Yeah, it says on October 3rd, 2023, City Council voted without taking a position to place the question on the ballot, and I agree that we should do that again.
Yep.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adopt item 16.
Okay.
Second.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Devine, yes. Counselor Jordan?
Yes.
Counselor Ocasio?
Yes.
And Counselor Givner?
Yes.
Okay. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Thank you
adjourn.
all very much.
And thank you, and Tanya, thank you for being here too.
Tanya's at every meeting. She's
know,
good.
that's what I
She's good
heard.
to us. Yes, we appreciate
But
it.
thank you. Are these your minutes or those mine?
That was an
Have a
extra.
good
That's your
evening.
copy, I
Okay.
think.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you,
you.
everybody, and good night. Hope you feel better.
Good night.
Right.
Bye-bye.